me. Yeah. My daddy tried to bore me with a sermon, but it's plain to see that they can't comfort me. Sorry, Charlie, for the imposition. I think I got the strength to carry on. Yeah, I need a drink and a quick decision. Now it's up to me. What will be? She's gone. She's gone. I better learn how to face. She's gone. She's gone. I pay the devil to replace her. She's gone. And she's gone. What went wrong? Get up in the morning.
I mean, if she were a baseball team, we might relate even better to the wistful sounds this morning of Hall and Oates. It was on this day in 1973, so 52 years ago, that Hall and Oates released their album Abandoned Luncheonette. The biggest song from that album, the one you just heard, She's Gone. But here's the interesting thing about it. Little tidbit for you. It did not become a hit instantly. In fact, it only gained momentum after a couple of covers of that song, one by Lou Rawls, the other by Tavares. And so the original She's Gone by Hall & Oates was re-released in 1976 and became a top 10 hit then. But nobody seemed to like it as much back in 1973 when the album Abandoned Luncheonette was released by Hall and Oates. Good Monday morning. We have turned the calendar. Is it okay if I still say that? Do you mind? I'm old enough to remember a time we had calendars on our walls, on our desks. We'd turn pages. We'd rip them off sometimes, a page a day at a time on our desks, etc. And we would flip that page from one month to the next. I know I'm speaking to a slightly older audience when I say that. Regardless, it is now November. Welcome to the show. Thanks very much for stopping by, spending some of your time with us. I love having you here for the conversations each and every day. I love hearing your thoughts on the topics we discuss. And indeed, we will get into what happened on Saturday night. I promise you, I'm sure you, like me, are still feeling similarly. I couldn't really decide yesterday, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, whether it was the time change that was getting to me or the gut punch on Saturday night. I truly felt as though a piece of my heart, maybe a piece of my soul, had been torn right from inside of me after that heartbreaking Game 7 World Series baseball game. But as I said, we will get there in due course. There were a couple of other things in the sporting world that I don't want to let slide by because I know our attention was focused squarely on the Blue Jays, and rightly so. But the Kitchener Rangers did something pretty special this weekend. They played 2 games and allowed 0. Count them. None. You don't have to count them. There were no goals allowed by the Kitchener Rangers on the weekend. They shut out the Sudbury Wolves on Friday night 3-0. They shut out the Brampton Steelheads 4-0 on Saturday afternoon. The cool part about it is both goaltenders, Christian Kirsch and Jason Schaubel, were used in those games. They both got shutouts. Now, this is not the first time that 2 different goaltenders for the Kitchener Rangers have posted back-to-back shutouts, but it is the first time in franchise history, and remember, this franchise's history now goes back more than 60 years. First time in Kitchener Rangers franchise history that 2 goalies posted their first career Ontario Hockey League shutouts on back-to-back nights. So congratulations to Christian Kirsch and to Jason Schaubel, not only for getting their first career OHL shutouts, but for setting a little bit of Kitchener Rangers history in the process. Something else, Saturday. Again, I know we were distracted, but when the Leafs play, something tends to happen more often than not. And when it does, we like to celebrate that on this show. Because on this show, we recognize who is the greatest hockey player on the planet. His name is Austin Matthews. His initials are AM. This is an AM radio station. This is the AM part of the day. So after a Leafs game, we play a little AM on AM in the AM.
Pass into the slot area. Matthews again. Scores! Austin Matthews on a turnover in the zone, but some good cycling done by the Leafs, and the Leafs have tied the game at 1.
And the Leafs would go on to win that game over the Philadelphia Flyers by a final score of 5-2. Leafs back in action tonight, taking on the Penguins from Pittsburgh. That game is going to be available on Amazon. Amazon Prime, Monday Night Hockey. If you've got the streaming service, you've got the game tonight. Another piece of news that crossed my desk on Saturday, it really caught my attention when I read this story because there is obviously a connection to us here in the region. You are likely aware of our Grand River Conservation Authority, right? Our GRCA. Among other things, they monitor water levels, send out alerts when flooding is possible, imminent, whatnot have you. It is also the agency that you go through to get a camping permit at one of our beautiful conservation areas, Laurel Creek, the Elora Gorge and Quarry. It just goes on from there. Shades Mills, I believe, falls under the GRCA purview. So we are aware enough of our Grand River Conservation Authority. And Ontario's Environment Minister held a news conference on Friday and had something pretty interesting to say. Now, I'll start with this. You know me. I'm kind of a fan of this whole consolidation, unification, amalgamation thing. I still think it's on my list of hopes and dreams for this community sometime before I expire, either professionally or personally. I would love to see us get our collective act together and unify under one local government, but that's an aside. I just remind you of that because, again, I'm a fan of looking at ways we can streamline. Maybe we can eliminate some layers of administration or bureaucracy. Those things make sense, but there's a little devil here in the details. At least it sounds like it to me. There's a little fly in the ointment here. Have a listen to what Ontario Environment Minister Todd McCarthy had to say at his media conference on Friday.
In the coming weeks, our government will begin consultations on a plan to consolidate our 36 current conservation authorities into several watershed-based regional conservation authorities. This will help reduce duplication, free up resources for frontline conservation work, and ensure conservation authorities are more responsive to the needs of the communities they serve. This new dedicated agency would work with conservation leaders to improve service delivery and protect communities. They will ensure faster, more transparent permitting and more frontline services so that we can reduce delays to get shovels in the ground sooner.
I'm okay with consolidating these 36 conservation authorities under one provincial agency and these regional entities. That part sounds fine to me. Like I said at the outset, I'm kind of a fan of this whole amalgamation, consolidation, unification thing. If it's eliminating bureaucracy and reducing our ability to get things done. However, the fact that this is intended also to get shovels into the ground, to help stimulate our economy, this just raises my antennae a little bit because what I believe our conservation authorities or our conservation areas are all about is just that, the conservation of environmentally sensitive lands, lands that we have set aside for our use and enjoyment, not for putting shovels into the ground there and building things, right? Unless they be necessary infrastructure like dams, etc. So this raises my antennae a little bit. Just wanted to make you aware of it because obviously it's going to impact us here. I already talked about the areas of our community that the Grand River Conservation Authority manages. And I just hope that what we're doing here is not moving in a direction where we plan, much like the Greenbelt several years ago, to open up areas that are currently protected by our Grand River Conservation Authority and other conservation authorities in this province from development. I don't want even homes, like I know we talk a lot about condos versus single-family homes. Those areas, as designated today, I would like to think remain in place. So this is kind of the opening salvo from the provincial government. We'll see where the conversation goes from here, but I wanted you to be aware of it. I'm all for consolidation. I am not for building on these lands that we use, enjoy, and the natural beauty of them being turned into lands for development. I'm not cool with that at all, so we'll keep our eyes and ears on it.
One is the loneliest number that you'll ever do.
Okay, let's get to your Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning, the 3rd of November. Number 1, the OPP are investigating after a fatal collision on the 401 involving a school bus that was carrying students from KCI in Kitchener. The students were not seriously hurt, but the bus driver died in the crash. The Waterloo Region District School Board says it's providing support for KCI students and their families. The crash happened on the weekend west of us towards London. Number 2, here at home, regional police investigating after a small pin was found inside a candy bar in Cambridge. Police say a caregiver discovered the pin while going through Halloween candy. The treat had been collected in the Sunset Boulevard and Saxony Circle area of Cambridge, not far from the Delta. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Waterloo Regional Police say a 47-year-old man is facing charges after a vehicle fire in Woolwich Township. Police say officers were called to a vehicle engulfed in flames around 2:15 a.m. Sunday. They say they searched for the driver with the assistance of police dogs. He was found inside a local residence, and it was determined he was there unlawfully. Number 4, Prime Minister Mark Carney's government is getting ready to table its first budget tomorrow. The Liberals' balance sheet is under pressure from a weak economy and promises to meet NATO defense spending targets, so most analysts are expecting the federal deficit to balloon this year. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, many Toronto Blue Jays fans are returning to work and school today with lingering sadness. I would count myself among those. Back at work with lingering sadness. The team, our Blue Jays, lost 5-4 to the Los Angeles Dodgers over the weekend in a tense Game 7 in front of a sold-out crowd at Rogers Center. It was a game that Jays fans were certain would be theirs after a 3-run homer put us up in the 3rd inning. But a game-tying home run in the 9th inning by the Dodgers, by the 9th batter of all things, tied the score 4-4, and L.A. would go on to win back-to-back championships with another home run in the extra 11th inning. It hurts to even read it. I will not tell a lie. As I was reading my morning papers, our national newspaper, the Globe and Mail, which just so happens to be owned by that other big blue telecom company, the arch rival of the telecom company that is the parent company of this radio station, Rogers, owners of the Blue Jays. Even that newspaper was full of stories and thoughts on the Blue Jays, and they were all very positive. I choked up a little bit. I did, reading back on some others' perceptions of what happened on Saturday night. I don't know why. I guess it comes with getting a little bit older. I remember when I was a kid, and I think there was actually a commercial about it. Wasn't there an actual commercial about how you tear up during commercials? I don't know. Either way, I remember hearing about stuff like that, and now maybe I guess I'm there. But, oh my goodness, did I feel as though I'd been run over by a truck yesterday. Was it all the Halloween candy? Was it the time change? Or was it that piece of my heart that had been torn out on Saturday night? I'm still not certain that I'm over it. What about you? How are you doing this morning? Any thoughts, reflections on the Blue Jays season that was? The weekend that was? with the loss on Friday when the ball got stuck under the wall, and then the loss on Saturday in 11 innings. We're here to hear from you. Are you over it yet, or what? How you doing this morning, Blue Jays fans? I would not trade the past month for anything. For love nor money, I would not trade the past month. What a ride. I just don't know how I'm going to fill my time from now on. But right now, I'll take your calls on the Blue Jays season on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, how are you feeling this morning? And I ask that question with sincerity. You know, they say misery loves company, but I'm not sure that's necessarily the case this morning. We're not miserable, but I feel as though our hearts may still be on the mend. A nation's heart broke on Saturday night, at least as far as I was concerned, with that Blue Jays loss to the Los Angeles Dodgers. 11 innings, the Dodgers turn a double play in the bottom of the 11th to finish off our Blue Jays. And just like that, the magical season was over. How are you doing this morning? You still feeling it a little bit? You still feeling it a lot? 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Marianne is on the phone with us this morning. Good morning, Marianne.
Good morning, Mike. Yes, I am not over it. The reason I'm saying that is only one reason. I can't honestly say that I feel the Dodgers were the best team. I just can't feel that way. And for that reason, I'm struggling to get over it.
You know what, Marianne? I agree with you completely. It really felt as though the Blue Jays were the better team, weren't they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. However, it is what it is, and we have to carry on.
I suppose we do, and we'll just carry on together, won't we?
Yes, we will. Thank you.
Thanks, Marianne. Nice to hear from you this morning. Let's go next to Gary. Gary, good morning.
Good morning, buddy. How are you, man?
I'm all right. How are you?
Very sad, heartbroken, of course. You know, like I watched the game on Saturday. My beloved, she couldn't wait up, so she ended up falling asleep on the couch. And when the game was over, I had to break the news to her going, "Hey, babe, wake up." And she's like, "Oh, did we win?" I'm like, "I'm so sorry we lost." But you know what? I'm whether they lost, you know, like even them losing, I'm still proud of them. I think they were the better team. They had a few plays and a few things that, you know, like the ball stuck in the fence, the umpire or the back catcher with his foot on the plate, the foot off the plate and back on the plate. Like they had some just bad cards dealt to them. But honestly, I think, you know, like that last play, the broken bat. If that bat didn't break, I swear to, you know, I believe that that ball would have been in play up and over, but they got lucky on that broken bat double play, and Blue Jays were the better team. They've obviously were giving them a run for their money, and I think the Dodgers just got lucky. Unfortunately, it's sad, but you know, with these young pitchers they've got, I think next year is going to be a better year. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you know what? It's a great point, Gary, and I'm hoping for the same. I'll be honest, though, this morning, it feels like that is such a long way back, which, of course, it is, right? We played 162 regular season games. Then we played 4 to knock off the New York Yankees. So there's 166. Then we played 7 to knock off the Seattle Mariners. There's 173. And we went 7 more against the Los Angeles Dodgers for a total of 180 regular season and playoff games, to say nothing of spring training. That is a long way back. But yes, there is reason, I think, to believe, especially with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and his $500 million contract, who's going to be the centerpiece of this team for the next 13 years, 14 years, more than a decade. And he demonstrated that he is absolutely ready for moments like this. Had it not been for the Dodgers winning and that ridiculous performance from their pitcher Yamamoto, then Vladimir Guerrero Jr., I believe, would have been the World Series MVP. He had those kinds of numbers for the Blue Jays all playoff long. So that gives me reason to believe. How many of these players are back next season? We'll get into that with our Blue Jay Hunter after the 9:30 news this morning. Ian will have a better sense than I about who can come back to this team. But man, oh man. And I know it's probably not yet there for the players if we're still feeling this way this morning. But in the fullness of time, we will look back on this for the epic World Series that it was and the fact that we were a part of it and we were so close. Preston Paul, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. My heart is absolutely ripped out of my chest.
Yeah, mine too, buddy. Mine too.
That was so hard to see the ending and just the way it came down. My worst sports nightmare came true on Saturday night. I'm beside myself.
You know who I think the nightmare now begins for is the Toronto Maple Leafs, Paul, because now all eyes will be on them, and they're not doing so well right now.
Yeah, and I bet you they wish there were still 2 more months left of the season for baseball.
Exactly.
So they could hide.
Yeah, you betcha.
But, just the way it went down and how that ending happened, I don't know what to do with myself, to be honest with you.
I'm feeling the same. Blue Jay Hunter is going to help us after 9:30.
I hope so.
All right, buddy.
I hope you have a good day, Mike.
You too, Paul. Good to hear from you this morning. Let's get one more in before that news update. Frank, good morning.
I laid my head down that night, and I could see that last play in like a silhouette in my head.
The double play that the Dodgers turned?
At the end. The broken, I could see it. Like, it was so weird. So weird, but you know what? It takes a lot of luck to win games in sports. There is some luck involved for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right, Frank.
Sides,
yep.
Hockey games,
sure.
Pucks off the skate. There is some luck. But yeah, go Jays, go! Can't wait for next year.
All right, Frank. That's a great sentiment, and I think we all agree on that. Can't wait for next year. Go Jays, go! In all of my years, and John Schneider, the Blue Jays manager, said the same thing after Game 6 on Friday night that the Blue Jays lost. He said, I've been with this organization a long time. I've never seen anything like that before, where the ball got stuck under the fence. If that ball doesn't get stuck under that fence, the Blue Jays would have scored a run. They would have been down 3-2 with the tying run on second base because Barger would have hit a double. And I believe it was Miles Straw ahead of him, would have scored because the ball would have stayed in play. Instead, it gets wedged under the fence, ground rule double, second and third. Still, the Blue Jays could have cashed them in, but they would have had one in if the ball had just not gotten stuck under the fence. That's some bad luck right there. I'm going to get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then our one and only Blue Jay Hunter will join us after that. We'll continue taking your calls and talking Blue Jays baseball. What's next for this team? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
This is where today's topics turn into today's talking points. It's local and it's Democratic radio at its finest. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
I've been crying for probably an hour, so I thought I was done with the tears, but I just love these guys so much. It was so much fun coming to work every day and, battling with these guys. And we have so much to be proud of, even though, it didn't go our way. All I care about is just hanging with these guys for, another couple hours. We gave it everything we had. And, when you fall short, but you can say that, you left it all out there, there's, something to be proud of there.
The Mike Farwell Show continues
on 570 News Radio.
Ernie Clement, you are all of us. You could hear the emotion in his voice, and I think that's part of the reason that Blue Jays fans are still so sad today, because they recognized that these guys gave it their all and that they loved playing with one another. This was a team in every sense of the word. Ian Hunter is our one and only Blue Jay Hunter, and he joins me in studio this morning. You and I talked last week, Ian, when you made your regular Wednesday morning appearance on the show. And we decided that come heck or high water on Monday morning, the Blue Jays would be the big story, so we would start the show this way. I don't know that we knew how big the story would be.
Yeah, it's so if we use the words to describe how Game 7 went, let's say devastating, soul-crushing, heartbreaking, all of the above. I mean, yeah, at the time, I assumed the momentum was definitely in Blue Jays' favor going into Game 6. They had a game in hand. They had 2 shots at it. And it ended pretty wonky in Game 6 as well for the Jays, but credit to them. They flushed it and they came back in Game 7. And I think if you were just a casual observer of baseball, if you didn't have a dog in that fight, that was maybe one of the greatest playoff games ever played. Not just baseball, but I'm talking pro sports, like the dramatics. It just so happened that the Blue Jays lost that game, but I don't think it should take anything away from what they accomplished this season. It was a Cinderella season for the Jays. You know, they were 2 outs short of winning a World Series, and it sucks that they didn't get a World Series ring, but they have everything to be proud of. Like Ernie Clement said, they laid it out on the field. Just because they didn't cross the finish line doesn't mean it wasn't a successful season for them.
How about the way Ernie Clement crossed home plate with the Blue Jays' 4th run? Sliding when there was no need to slide, but the pure joy on his face, Ian.
Yeah, and at that time, again, momentum was shifting in the Jays' favor. It was still a pretty close game. That would put the Blue Jays up by 2 runs. But, I mean, credit to the Dodgers. They just kept chipping away. Like it was just a home run off Trey Savage in the 8th. And Miguel Rojas comes in. He's the number 9 hitter. He only hit 7 home runs in the regular season for the Dodgers. And he ties the game, and then Will Smith hits the go-ahead home run in the 11th. I mean, the Jays had opportunities, right? Like, we can't sit here and say that the Jays didn't have chances. I mean, they were literal inches from winning the World Series in the bottom of the 9th. If Isaiah Kiner-Falefa maybe was a size 13 or 14 shoe, maybe the Jays are celebrating right now. But, yeah, they had their chances, and credit to Yamamoto. He came in from the Dodgers. He shut down the Jays in Game 6, and then finishes the game in Game 7 as well, rightfully the World Series MVP. So I don't want to say, I think luck had a little bit to do with it, right? Like, I think John Schneider, he made a comment that obviously talent will get you this far, but Lady Luck plays a part in this as well, and she just wasn't there for the Blue Jays in Game 6 and Game 7, unfortunately.
You and I, during our weekly conversations through the regular season, Ian, would invoke the Toronto sports mantra every once in a while. Yep. Things weren't going right. It's frustrating. Well, Toronto sports. And I saw some of the snark online after the game on Saturday. I refused to buy into any of it. This was not a roll your eyes Toronto sports moment about some big failure. This was the furthest thing from failure. I know they didn't win, so you could say on a technicality it was, but you look at this season as a whole, you look at this playoff, there is nothing to be disappointed in this team for.
No, absolutely not. And I'm guilty of invoking that Toronto sports curse as well throughout the season, but it wasn't a curse. This year was a blessing for the Blue Jays. It really was. It was a treat to watch. If you think back of all, like, not to get all sentimental, but just think of all the memories that this team has created for generations of Blue Jays fans. These players are going to be celebrated for everything they accomplished. I mean, maybe someday we see statues or murals of guys like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and George Springer and Bo Bichette because of everything that they accomplished. I think that should all be celebrated. I don't think it was a Toronto sports thing. This wasn't the first round and they got knocked out in Game 7. They were literally 2 outs away from winning the World Series. So, yeah, I think for the rest of the year, I think I'm going to put a embargo on the Toronto sports thing. I'm not going to mention it anymore because, yeah, they made it almost made it to the end, and we should celebrate them for that.
I think, in fairness, we have to look at the job Dave Roberts, the manager of the Dodgers, did in Game 7 and say, That was pretty damn masterful. It really was, the way he used his bullpen, which was using starters, including Yamamoto, to shut it down. The defensive replacement in center field could not have come at a better time, because the catch on the Ernie Clement long fly ball could have been the game, but the defensive replacement had just shown up.
Yeah, I was thinking that this morning. Hats off to the Dodgers. They played a really solid, fundamental game throughout most of the World Series, but especially in Game 7. I mean, when that fly ball was going to left field and you watched Kike Hernandez, it looked like that ball was going to drop. And
he was lost.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, Andy Pages comes out of nowhere from the heavens, and he hip checks his fellow outfielder, and he's like, "No, bro, I got this." If that ball drops, the Jays win the World Series. And Miguel Rojas, another guy, he made that play, that throw to home. I celebrated for a few seconds because I thought the Jays had won at that point. I forgot it was a forced play at home. And even when the replay was on, I thought, oh, maybe Will Smith's foot came off of home plate. But they were a fundamentally sound team, top to bottom. And then when Yamamoto came in to finish the game, you thought, oh no, we just saw this guy last night. How could he possibly be in this game again? So there's a reason why they're a two-time defending World Series champion team. But the Blue Jays, I think, if anything, they can take solace that they took them to the brink. I think there was a lot of people, especially south of the border, that didn't give the Jays a chance in heck to win this series. They labeled this as David and Goliath, and it couldn't have been further from the truth. It was two Goliaths going at it. And unfortunately, the Blue Jays came up a bit short.
I think the Blue Jays may have been the bigger of those Goliaths. I just want to share this stat with you that I came across Saturday night that unfortunately doesn't help, but the Dodgers batted .203 in the World Series, got outscored 34-26, and won it all.
Yeah.
We were the better team, Ian.
Statistically, yes, they were the better hitting team, better on-base team, better slugging team. They had the better starter ERA. The Dodgers had a slightly better bullpen ERA, and the Blue Jays were also a better hitting team with runners in scoring position. They hit .231. The Dodgers were .191. The real difference maker I can see here was the Dodgers had 11 homers where the Jays had 8 in that series. So a couple swings here and there, a few inches here and there, and that's an entire difference maker. So statistically, yes, I know Caleb Joseph went on the Blue Jays broadcast after the game, and he said, yeah, the Blue Jays were the better team. Statistically, yes, the Jays were, but that's the beauty of sports, right, Mike? It's not the better team does not always win, and unfortunately, that was the case for the Jays.
We had a couple of little faux pas on the air here last week using the very same language that Caleb Joseph used when he made that remark after the game on Saturday night. He cursed. He says, I don't give a bleep.
Yes.
And he's one of us. We're the ones, when we had the faux pas on the show last week, it was other people or recorded things saying things that they shouldn't have said. But Caleb Joseph just blurted it out. But that's how we felt, I suppose.
I think that just tells you how much emotion there was after that series. Like, to see, I mean, we try to be impartial here, but to witness that and just to be so close to it, it's just so heart-wrenching. And the Blue Jays deserved to win that World Series, for sure. Absolutely they did. And they kind of got it slipped through their fingers. But like I said, they had plenty of opportunities. They were 15 for 65. In the whole World Series with runners in scoring position, they were 3 for 17 in Game 7. So, you know, a hit there, like the Andres Jimenez one that Max Muncy grabbed where he was trying to bunt and then slapped. If that goes down, who knows? Maybe this game's entirely different. But unfortunately, that's the way it ended.
It is the way it ended. We're still feeling it this morning. We'll take your phone calls right after this quick break, and I want to get Ian's perspective on what this team looks like next year. We'll gaze into that crystal ball as best we can this morning as we remember a remarkable season and an oh-so-close finish for our Toronto Blue Jays. Your calls coming up on the Mike Farwell Show with Blue Jay Hunter on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It was a Blue Jays team for a new generation. We'll be talking about what was for the next 20-plus years. For now, We remember the team that gave us so much over the past month really invigorated an entire nation, at least from where I'm sitting. How are you feeling this morning? Blue Jay Hunter, our very own Ian Hunter in studio with us. And let's get to the phones and hear from you. Chris, start us off. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you, bud?
Good, thanks.
I'm not a big sports follower. I like the Rangers. I'll watch or listen to the odd Blue Jays. But when they won the ALCS, I said to my whole family, we're getting invested. We're going to buy gear. Let's watch every single game. And got so emotionally involved. And then I woke up Sunday morning, and I was so mad. And my wife's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I don't normally get mad about sports teams. And she's like, well, it's Toronto's. Like, the Toronto teams aren't usually defendable. And I'm like, but this one was different. It was like absolutely worth it, and two of Kirk's bats breaking right at the end, that ball getting stuck in the fence in Game 6. Like, there was so much heartache, but the team put as much effort as they could possibly muster into it, and we should be at least proud of them.
I think that's an excellent point. And Ian, you and I were talking about the same thing during the break, when the number of people that were invested in this team in this game on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, these are the stories I love to hear, that people, they say, oh, these are bandwagon jumpers. It doesn't matter.
Welcome aboard.
Everyone has to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, this team has created Blue Jays fans for life, whether it's kids or adults who have just jumped on board. I mean, I had my mom call me about the Jays. Like, I'm having conversations with people about the Blue Jays that I've never talked baseball before. I've spent more time with my friends watching baseball games than I ever have, and I'm just thankful for that. And it's the Blue Jays we have to thank for this team. Kind of, again, not to get cheesy, but it brought the country together. It brought people together, and I think everyone's kind of thankful for that.
Couldn't agree more. It absolutely did. Conservative Charlie, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I don't know if you can remember, years ago, ABC used to have a program on the Wild Waters Sports, and they always started off the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And that kind of sums it up for me. But you know what's not lost on me? I think the Americans down there, the Dodgers' home games are 3,000 or 4,000 people short of sellouts. They didn't even support them themselves. The Toronto fans are the best in the world. It's not lost on me, but I think baseball down states is taking a second seat. You got all these college football games that are drawing 80 to 100,000 people, but they couldn't even sell out in the second biggest market in the states, their home games. You can't say the same about Toronto. We supported them, Mike.
Good point, Charlie. And Rogers Center was rocking.
And I mean, for the Dodgers, this is kind of old hat for them, right? Like, their last World Series appearance was last year. Okay. So they've been there, I think, 5 times in the last 10 or 15 years or what have you. For the Blue Jays, it was 32 years. And there was a time, like, we saw every road playoff game, Mike. There was tons of Jays fans in those visiting stadiums. They didn't outnumber them by any means. But yeah, I think you saw Jays fans were willing to go high and low. They spend tens of thousands of dollars to go to a World Series game because we never thought we'd see it again. And the numbers on Sportsnet or on the radio broadcasts, like, millions upon millions of people were invested in this team. And in the United States, it's fragmented a bit. Like Charlie said, it's college sports is up there, NFL football still. But there's a reason why the Jays are Canada's team, because they unite everybody across from coast to coast to coast.
Everybody wants to talk Blue Jays baseball this morning. Paul from Kitchener, you're next. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Mike, and good morning, Ian.
Good morning.
Let's just put that heartache aside for 1 second and look at this as a business opportunity. One, we've heard up and down the lineup, the whole roster, this group of guys, this team, and, it wasn't one, it was all the way through the whole roster. What are the Blue Jays ownership team going to do now with free agents and all of that happening? If they make trades and lose the core makeup of this unified team, we're not going to fill up Rogers Center anymore. Like, people aren't going to go if that group of guys does something stupid and sell off some of our free agents instead of signing them for another 1 year.
Yeah,
Ian, I'll wait for you.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, I think at this point, this is a pretty good negotiating tactic. If you're out there trying to get a free agent, you say, hey, listen, we were 2 outs away from the World Series. You heard up and down, like after that Blue Jays game, all the guys through tears, the Blue Jays players saying what a great group of players it was. Ernie Clement saying it's the most fun he's had playing baseball, and Shane Bieber, who came over in a midseason trade, saying how he loved playing with this team. But I think it's like anything, it's always hard to replicate lightning in a bottle. As much as you're going to try, it's hard to do. But I think first order of business, free agency does open up later this week. So number one is Bo Bichette is the big guy on the list. Are the Blue Jays going to re-sign him? Further down, you've got free agents like Chris Bassett, Max Scherzer, so they're going to have spots in the starting rotation. I think absolutely the Blue Jays are going to double down here. You would be dumb not to reinvest in this team, whether it's via trade or free agency, because you kind of saw what's possible here, and prospective free agents have seen the kind of core that the Blue Jays have developed here. I think if you're a player on the outside looking in, you really want to be part of that right now.
And let's be clear, I'm not trying to set expectations for the company here or anything, but to think that this entire team comes back intact is foolish. It just doesn't work that way in baseball, does it?
No, and even if you brought the same cast of characters and you ran it back and rolled it into next year, does that guarantee success? I probably not. You're probably not going to win 94 games. You may win more, you may win less, who knows. But you kind of have to augment the talent. And it's similar, I think, in 92 and 93, right? Like all of a sudden when the Jays won the World Series in 92, they went out and got two of the biggest free agents, Paul Molitor and Dave Stewart. It's an easy sell. When you're a winning team, it doesn't matter if you're a Canadian team. And I know American players always gripe about customs and having to play in a different country and whatnot. But when you're a winning organization, none of that matters. And I think the Blue Jays are going to be really aggressive, whether it is in trade or free agency, to kind of keep this momentum going.
All right. That was the big piece I wanted to make sure we got into. Paul got us there, so let's squeeze in at least one more call before we go. Kyle, good morning.
Good morning. First of all, Blue Jay Hunter, it's been a pleasure talking to you throughout the whole season. It's been fun. I will remember this for the rest of my life. It doesn't matter. I know that we lost the World Series. It's heartbreaking, but you know what? This team defied all odds. I've heard stories. We weren't supposed to go and win against the Yankees. We won against the Yankees. We weren't supposed to win against those Mariners. We won against the Mariners. Oh, it's going to be a sweep against the Dodgers. They're going to get you guys. We made it to Game 7. I will remember this, having the conversations with Mike and you and all my friends, taking this. I will always remember this. This was the most fun I've ever had. And you know what? There's always next year, the year after. I know it sounds redundant and all that stuff, but guys, we cannot be negative. This team has done us proud. They've done Canada proud. And the organization isn't afraid to spend money because we have the 7th top spending in the MLB. And before I let you go, on the count of 3, I'm not going to stream, but let's go Blue Jays. Thank you guys very much. It's been a pleasure, and I'll talk to you guys next season. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's a common sentiment, right? I heard people saying, some of these Blue Jays games were the best days of my life, which is, that's wild. Like, that hits you right in the feels. I think Game 7 of the ALCS, George Springer's home run, that's going to live on forever. It's unfortunate Bo Bichette's home run in Game 7 of the World Series is going to be kind of forgotten with the way that game ended. But, these guys cemented their legacy as they're going to be some of the most memorable Blue Jays players ever to play. And to think, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., this is just getting started. He's going to be here for 14 more years. So I think if you're a Jays fan, you're optimistic, you're reflective, and you're thankful and happy. I know it's cheesy. I think it's a Dr. Seuss quote, something like, don't be sad that it's over, but smile that it happened. And I think a few days later, after the initial hurt, I think a lot of Jays are feeling the same way. They're just grateful that the team got as far as they did and grateful that they created all these memories.
We don't know what the team will look like, but we're going to roll this back, Ian. When the regular season begins next year, you're here with us.
Yeah, we'll talk to you in April.
Blue Jay Hunter joins us on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Rogers TV.
It is provincial legislation that is intended to support children and students. But as we so often learn, the devil is in the details, after all, isn't it? And post-secondary students in this province are quite concerned about Bill 33. Remington G is the vice president of Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association at the University of Waterloo and joins us to talk about it. Remington, good morning.
Good morning.
What is Bill 33, Provincial Bill 33, and how does it impact students at the University of Waterloo?
Yeah, so Bill 33, the Supporting Children and Students Act, includes proposed changes to Ontario's education system, and Section 21.1 of the bill would require student associations to follow new government rules on ancillary fees, potentially changing how fees are collected and threatening how we fund student services. At Waterloo, students collectively decide on our fees through a transparent and democratic process, and these fees fund everything from advocacy and events to peer support. And the government is framing the bill as a transparency and choice measure, but so far they haven't clarified what it actually means or how this would help students.
So what services for students may be at risk as this legislation moves forward?
Yeah, so some of the things we fund here at WUSA include equity services like Raise, Glow, the Women's Center, our campus food bank, various peer support services, events, and advocacy.
I know one of the major concerns is the future of student-run publications, which would include the UW student newspaper imprint. What are the implications for those student-run publications?
Yeah, so imprint is also funded by a student fee. It is currently mandatory, but we actually voted, it used to be optional, and we actually voted at our general meeting last year to make it mandatory. So this kind of democratic decision-making about our own publications is something that this bill threatens to take away. And when that happens, it could mean lack of funding for our student publications, which means less transparency about things that happen around our student union at our university.
So how does the bill, Remington, take away democracy at the local or school level? Would the decisions be made at the, Ministry of Colleges and Universities?
Yes. So the bill currently says it simply gives sweeping power to the Lieutenant Governor and Council to make regulations around fees collected by universities and colleges, including those they collect on behalf of student associations. As currently written, it is very vague. There's a lot of uncertainty, and until those final regulations are released, possibly months after the bill passes, we won't know which services are considered protected or essential. So it creates a lot of uncertainty for us.
What efforts have you undertaken so far in order to raise awareness about this and make sure MPPs at Queen's Park are hearing you?
Yeah, so as soon as we heard about this bill, we submitted our feedback to the ministry and contacted local MPPs across the Waterloo region. We also collected 700 petition signatures from students and sent them to the Waterloo MPP, Catherine Fife, and she spoke on this at the legislature since it has come back in session in October. We also participated in a press conference at Queen's Park in mid-October. I was there with Ontario Student Voices, the College Students Alliance, and the Canadian Alliance of Student Associations. So it's a very wide-ranging effort from many student groups who are feeling threatened by this bill.
How have your efforts been received so far?
I think we're getting a lot of support from students who are hearing about all of these services and how they're funded and feel very threatened by the bill. And we're hoping to get more support from MPPs.
Where is Bill 33 currently? Is there optimism, Remington, that you can stop this legislation or at minimum have changes made to it before it ultimately passes?
Yeah, so last I checked on Friday, it is still being debated in second reading. We have no idea how long those debates will take or whether it will, or how long debates in third reading will take. What we're advocating for now is for Section 21.1, which is the section that impacts student association fees, to be removed from the bill, or for it to be sent to the Standing Committee on Social Policy during third reading. And if the bill passes, then we call on the ministry to meet with students to discuss the bill's potential impacts. But we're really hoping that we can get some clarity on what the ministry seeks to do with the bill before it passes and not after. Because right now there's just not enough transparency about what they're trying to do.
Would costs for students increase under this legislation?
Well, if it does pass, and depending on what those regulations look like, we will have to look into our budget and how we can keep things sustainable. But student associations fill a lot of the gaps that universities are unable to fill right now due to the funding shortfalls. And if a lot of our services go away, students might see costs rise in other areas when they have to pay for things on their own rather than benefit from a group-funded program from their student association.
You mentioned that this bill is currently at second reading. Do you have any further actions planned in order to ensure your voice is heard on this legislation?
Yeah, so we didn't expect it to be in second reading for so long, so we do have to regroup and see what our next steps are, but we will continue to communicate to students about the impact of this bill, encourage students to reach out to their MPPs and talk about how their student association fees and programs benefit them, and just continue to talk to all sector stakeholders, including lawmakers, to make sure that student voices are being heard.
Remington, I appreciate your time on the show today. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me on.
Remington G. is the vice president of the Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association at the University of Waterloo, joins us to talk about Bill 33. And on the surface, it sounds like exactly the kind of legislation you would want from your provincial government. It's a bill to support children and students, but post-secondary students from the University of Waterloo and elsewhere say this could drastically change how essential student services are funded, including mental health services and others offered through the Student Association at the University of Waterloo. Another major concern is the future of student-run publications, because these rely on consistent funding in order that they maintain editorial independence and operations. And if there are optional fees attached to them, that could force cutbacks or even closures to independent on-campus publications at the University of Waterloo, like the student newspaper, The Imprint. Now, you'll recognize my bias in this. As a grad of the University of Waterloo, the student newspaper at the time, and I've always been a fan. I've told you this multiple times. I love me a good newspaper. I read The Imprint religiously when I was there. Heck, my high school newspaper, The Expression, the Conestoga College newspaper, where I also attended post-secondary, Spoke, read it every day or every week when it came out. So I kept up with these things. And it's worth pointing out, in the bigger picture here, it was actually the University of Waterloo student newspaper that broke the big story and the big scandal in Kitchener many decades ago, when the council of the day in Kitchener secretly hatched a plan, had the whole thing put together to relocate City Hall so that Market Square, the mall that is now deserted, I might add, could be built in downtown Kitchener. That beautiful old City Hall destroyed to make way for a shopping mall in downtown Kitchener. And it was the University of Waterloo student newspaper of the day, and a reporter there that broke the story. Just to emphasize the importance of these student-led publications on post-secondary campuses. So students have been actively organizing to push back against Bill 33. They've got some support from Waterloo MPP Catherine Fife, who raised this at the provincial legislature, and we will continue to watch with interest to see where Bill 33, the Supporting Children and Students Act, ultimately goes. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, what is Waterloo Wayside? I confess, I was only about 5 days ago old when I first learned about Waterloo Wayside. We'll tell you more about it and how you can see it firsthand coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. Stay with us on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is called the Waterloo Wayside Center, and we are about to learn a lot more about it, including an opportunity for us to attend an open house later this week. Karen Dixon joins the program. Karen is a program leader and longtime volunteer at the Waterloo Wayside Center. Karen, good morning.
Good morning.
What is the Waterloo Wayside Center?
Okay, well, we're based in the Uptown Waterloo core, and we provide free programs for people who need community, people experiencing homelessness or food insecurity, seniors, new Canadians, and youth. And we use tools such as providing hot lunches and clothing and allowing people to meet in safe spaces to meet other people and to develop community. How did all of this get started? Oh, it's quite a long history. Actually, in 2007, we were asked by oh my gosh, my brain's not working this morning. We were asked to provide space. Emmanuel United Church was asked to provide space for a drop-in center, and the programming was done in partnership with the Working Center. So that lasted for quite a number of years until their programming dried up. And by then, the programs were so well used that the church decided that it would take it over and run it when their programming ran out. So that was in 2014 where we became Waterloo Wayside. And recently we have become our own separate entity. We are now standalone, not-for-profit.
So I understand there's an open house coming up this week that will allow folks to get a closer look at the work you do.
Yeah, so we're going to invite people in to see who we are and what we do. And we're going to have some food. We're going to have some remarks from the mayor and other people, and we will have a short video that was made from the volunteers and the people who use our services to tell them how it's impacted their lives. And so we're going to show off a little bit.
I think you should. Where and when does this happen, Karen?
It's inside Emmanuel United Church, which is 22 Bridgeport Road West. It'll be on Wednesday, November the 5th, this coming Wednesday, from 5 until 7.
22 Bridgeport Road West at Emmanuel United Church. Is that right where we kind of come off Urb and it turns to Bridgeport in and around that area?
Yeah, it's just a block up from King Street.
A block up from King Street.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. 22 Bridgeport Road West. And this happens on Wednesday afternoon. What was it that... Sorry, go ahead.
Early evening.
Early evening, pardon me. Early evening Wednesday. Okay. What was it that attracted you as a volunteer to Waterloo Wayside, Karen?
Well, initially I was quite nervous about doing something that it's very out of my comfort zone. But really quickly became just enthralled with meeting the people. We've had some very, very interesting people and developed some really great friendships over the years, and continue to do so.
Are you looking forward to the open house on Wednesday?
I am. I hope that the community will come and see the impact that we're having. I think people will be very surprised at what's been going on very quietly within that building for the last number of years.
Well, I congratulate you and the rest of the volunteers on the work, and I wish you continued success delivering that programming. Thank you very much for joining the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Karen Dixon joins us from Waterloo Wayside. Karen is a program leader and longtime volunteer. This is all happening just a block away from King at Bridgeport on 22 Bridgeport Road West, Emmanuel United Church. There is an open house, and you can learn more about it following this conversation this morning with Karen. You can learn more about this about Waterloo Wayside by attending the open house on Wednesday late afternoon from 5 until 7. There will be refreshments provided, speeches, including an address from the mayor at 6. But for a couple of hours, pop into Emmanuel United Church on Bridgeport Road West in Waterloo. Learn more about Waterloo Wayside, which is the programming that they do for youth, for seniors, for the marginalized in our community, and how they continue to build and nurture integrated community with their recently gained charity status that you heard Karen mention as well. So it's the little project that could, I think, starting in our uptown and supporting a number of people in our community. That open house Wednesday from 5 until 7, Emmanuel United Church, 22 Bridgeport Road West in Waterloo. Want to let you know that I am going to follow through. I've always intended to do this, as you know, I would never let you down. But I did fall a little bit behind since we first talked about it. About 10 days or so ago now, we were talking about speed cameras, and we know that their days are now numbered, right? Speed cameras in this region, speed cameras in this province. November the 14th is the day that they will be banned in Ontario, and that would mean all of those speed cameras currently in operation will be shut down, unless something changes, of course, in the next 11 days. But as has been asked many times, two things. One, yes, the cameras are still active. And two, if you received a ticket, even before Premier Ford said he was going to ban them, and even though we now know the date when they will be banned, you still have to pay that ticket. Nothing changes today. Nothing changes insofar as any fines that you have received. But when we were talking about this a little over a week ago, we got a number of calls from listeners who insisted that they had received tickets for doing 3, 4, 5 kilometers over the posted speed limit. And frankly, I said it at the time, I don't believe that to be the case. The Toronto Star did some digging into this and found that of the 36 or so municipalities in Ontario that are currently using speed cameras, only one of those municipalities has the camera calibrated at anything under double digits over the limit. So if the limit's 30, most municipalities, all but one municipality, have that ticket threshold set at 40. If the limit's 40, that ticket threshold set at 50. Despite that, some of you insisted you had received tickets for being just single digits over the posted speed limit. For what it's worth, when I said, Toronto Star did this research, I don't think you're getting a ticket for that, and they promised they would send me the tickets, I haven't received them yet. So I don't think we're getting ticketed here for being single digits over the posted limit, even where there is a speed camera. But what I promised to do was put it to the test, which makes me very nervous because I have not received a speed camera ticket. I really do my utmost to drive responsibly. I'm not a speeder. I'm not in a hurry to get places. I obey the rules of the road. Sure, sometimes I guess I can be inattentive too, and if I'm in a 30, I might not slow down fast enough. But so far, knock wood, so good in getting a speeding ticket from a speed camera. But I promised you I would drive through that speed camera zone on Weber Street at Sunnyside Public School where the limit's 40 and a speed camera is present. I said, I'll do 48 and we'll find it. We'll put this thing to the test. Will I get a ticket for doing 48? Which, by the way, I think I should get a ticket for. 20% over the speed limit sounds pretty excessive to me. But nonetheless, I'm going to run the risk of taking money out of my own pocket, and you know how cheap I am. Goodness gracious. I don't want to pay the fine. I don't want a ticket. Haven't had one yet, but I'm going to do this in the interests of science for the show, okay? And I'm going to make sure that happens this afternoon. After the show, I'm going to go. I'm going to blaze through that speed zone, that speed camera zone on Weber Street at 48, maniac that I am. And I will report back whether or not I receive a ticket. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
This is where today's topics turn into today's talking points. It's local and it's Democratic radio at its finest. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
This year, what we saw is another record-breaking number, which is a record we're not trying to beat. So 2.2 million visits to food banks across Canada in a single month in 2025, and that represents a doubling of food bank use since 2019.
The Mike Farwell Show continues
on 570 News Radio.
That is Kirsten Beardsley, the CEO of Food Banks Canada, on the Big Story podcast today. You can get the Big Story podcast on the Frequency Podcast Network. Find it on Seeker, SEEKR. Learn more about it. But we play that clip for you as we bring it home here and welcome into our studio this morning Kim Wilhelm, who is the CEO at the Food Bank of Waterloo Region. Good morning, Kim.
Good morning.
And Kim brings along with her today one of our favorites and a good friend, Alan Bush, Senior Wealth Advisor with the Alan Bush team. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike.
Kim, let's start with what we just heard from Food Banks Canada. This is the annual hunger count. And we've got lots of things to talk about because we know Alan was a matching sponsor this year, again, with the Full Bellies, Happy Hearts campaign, which we'll get to. But when you look at these numbers that we're hearing with the annual hunger count, what does that look like here in the region of Waterloo?
What we're seeing nationally is definitely reflected what we're seeing here at home. And the Food Bank of Waterloo Region will be releasing our 2025 Community Impact Report this Thursday. And while I can't share the exact numbers quite yet, I can tell you that it's been another record-breaking year. We've distributed more food than ever through our partner programs in the Community Food Assistance Network. And that includes a growing proportion of fresh and frozen items, which are so important to nutrition of those who are accessing food assistance. The need in our community is also growing. Tens of thousands of people in Waterloo Region access food assistance over the past year. And one number that will particularly stick out when we release those numbers is the number of visits to food programs have reached an all-time high here. And many of those who are needing help are children. And, you know, I especially think about that with Alan sitting here. And you mentioned our Full Bellies and Happy Hearts. And with the increase that we've had in children who are accessing food assistance is really concerning. We're seeing more people overall just having to rely on food assistance for longer periods of time. Gone are the days where food banks are short-term solutions to get somebody over that hump in life. We are seeing that families and households are coming back month after month, which is just showing us how dependent on programs people really are to get by.
And these are people with jobs.
Right. This is, I remember the first time I heard the term working poor, which, you know, and this goes back well over a decade now, but as you say, Alan, folks have jobs and those jobs aren't helping people meet those basic expenses.
Affordability.
Yeah.
Like inflation, and you can't put food on the table for your family. That's scary.
It absolutely is. So, Kim, what does action as a community then look like in this regard?
First and foremost, Mike, we really need to change some government systems in order to get by. This isn't something that we're just going to easily solve at the local level. What we can do right now as a community is help by making sure that people have access to food if and when they need it. And so relying on the community, again, continuing throughout the next year to make sure that at the Food Bank of Waterloo Region, we have the resources that we need to ensure that people are fed. Beyond that, though, we need to call on areas of government to make action. First, we need to make life more affordable for people. It means investing in housing, both with rental supports. We need to introduce things like the groceries and essential benefit to help people with lower incomes cover the basics in life. And these are practical steps that the government can take right now to help ease the pressure that families are feeling. Second, and most importantly, though, we need to tackle the root cause of poverty. Food insecurity is a symptom of poverty, meaning that people cannot afford to buy food. And that starts with modernizing our employment insurance system so it better supports people. And we need to repair our outdated social safety net, beginning with enhancing the Canada Disability Benefit so no one falls through the crack.
Alan, let's talk about this from a financial perspective and perhaps someone who would be looking at donating securities by way of example. What benefits are there for both the donor and the organization?
Huge benefits.
Yeah.
This is the best way to give to charities because it benefits you too. So let's say you have a capital gain, let's say in Rogers stock, okay? You bought Rogers stock before the World Series.
Smart person if you
Smart
did that.
person, you know. It was worth $10,000, now it's worth $15,000. That's a capital gain of $5,000. And if you donate that security, you won't have to pay capital gains tax on that stock. And there's a lot of stocks that are up this year. Despite how Main Street is hurting, Bay Street, all the stocks are up. And you'd be surprised. Canada is one of the best performing stock markets this year. So you could donate those stocks that have capital gains on them, or the bonds that have capital gains, or your mutual funds, or your ETFs in some, financial dividend stocks or whatever, or tech stocks. You take those gains, you don't have to pay taxes on those, and you give those securities in kind to the food bank, and you won't have to pay capital gains tax. And then you get a nice big charitable donation, and you can feel good and make everybody happy.
So anybody that might be listening and thinking of making a donation like this, how would you advise them to get started?
First thing you do is you phone the food bank or your charity of choice and ask them if they have a securities donation form. Then you take that form to your accountant and financial advisor and say, what securities has got the most gains? Because you don't want to donate a security that has no gains because you don't benefit from that. So you take the securities that you've had the longest. Let's say it was that old, Mutual Life, which became Clerica, which became Sun Life. That's a huge capital gain. If you got it for free, it was zero. So your capital gains is huge. So you take that security, you have your financial advisor fill out the form that the food bank provided you, and then you hand that back to the food bank, and they will process and transfer that security in kind from your broker to the food bank. And then your donation is based on the value that is received that day at the food bank.
Kim, we are entering that time of year. We're starting to think about holiday time. I saw a store in the mall. I was walking by completely for a different reason late last week, and they were turning their decorations over from autumn. There was a Christmas tree up. There was a Santa. We're past Halloween. So as we think about the holidays, I know people think about giving to the food bank. Cash, food donations are so common. But there's another way for people to give, isn't there?
Through their time. Yeah. Absolutely. And we are always looking for people to help us out in our warehouse, whether, it's once a week or once a month. We're looking for people who can come in and help us out in an event. We're looking for volunteer drivers. There's so many ways that somebody can give back their time at this time of year and beyond.
Where's the best way for us to learn, to give to the food bank and to learn about these volunteer opportunities?
Thefoodbank.ca. And we also have information on there about donating gifts of securities, like Alan had mentioned. This is a time when people tend to think about the food bank, especially around the holidays. And so it's a busy activity time for us. But the reality is food insecurity is happening 365 days a year.
That's a nice, easy website to remember.
Quickly, one of the best gifts I give to my kids was a donation. So we did a donation to the food bank. And they opened up their gifts and they saw their names on the gifts. And then you can talk about real things about life with your kids and make an impact that will everlasting. They still bring that up today. That was the best gift they ever got. It wasn't an iPod. It was the gift that they helped other people in the community.
Your relationship now, Alan, with the food bank is long-standing. Yeah. What motivates you to do the work you do with the food bank?
Making a difference.
Yeah.
in our community. That's the most important thing in the world. You can't take stuff with you. You can give back and make an impact. That's what lasts forever.
That website, as Kim mentioned, thefoodbank.ca, real simple, and you can cash, food, and your time also is valuable to the food bank. Kim, Alan, thank you both for being here this morning.
Have a fantastic day. Thanks for having us.
Alan Bush, Senior Wealth Advisor with the Alan Bush Investment Team, and Kim Wilhelm is the CEO of the Food Bank of Waterloo Region. Again, online, thefoodbank.ca. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, what a day for us to be having some technical difficulties on the Rogers TV Cable 20 side, because you missed something that just happened in this studio that you would have loved, I think, to see. I saw it, and I'll tell you about it in just a second, because it ties into this email from Russell to Mike at 570news.com. He says, Billie Eilish just gave $11.5 million to feed the hungry. She then asked why billionaires are billionaires. Elon Musk could give $120 billion and still have more than the second place billionaire. Why aren't we challenging people like Galen Weston and Kevin O'Leary? I hear you, Russell. In a world as wealthy as ours, certainly a nation as wealthy as ours, it's difficult to see the levels of poverty that we do. But let me tell you what I just saw in this studio this morning. Alan Bush, Senior Wealth Advisor with the Alan Bush Investment Team, who does okay for himself and has this long-standing partnership now, relationship with the Food Bank of Waterloo Region, offers the matching donations every year for the Full Bellies Happy Hearts campaign. And he was telling the story about the gift he gave to his kids so they could see their names on a donation to the food bank. And there were tears running down the man's cheeks. I know it's not Kevin O'Leary or Galen Weston or others, but this is what we are doing in our community, and we've got to start somewhere, and maybe we can model that behavior for some of the others. It was heartwarming to see and very moving, that tear running down Alan Bush's cheek in the studio just this morning. We have moved into the month of November, and the month of November just so happens to be National Woman Abuse Prevention Month. So it is with that in mind, we welcome Jennifer Hutton to the show. Jen is the CEO of Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region. And maybe we can just start right there, Jen, with this being the month that it is, Woman Abuse Prevention Month. What do you reflect on as we enter this month?
Well, we always prepare well in advance for this month. We have a lot of things on the go to really raise awareness and to talk about how can we ultimately prevent the issue, the social issue of violence against women. And it's a busy month all around for us. So we prepare quite a while in advance.
And we'll get to one of the really tangible ways the community can support and be involved in some of the work that you do this month. But when it comes to the need for a month like this to shine a spotlight on this issue, I guess sadly, Jen, it's not like it's an issue that's going away. In fact, I mean, with intimate partner violence being declared an epidemic by municipal councils here in the region and elsewhere, is it getting worse, or are we just talking about it more?
I think a bit of both. We are definitely talking about the issue so much more. People are so much more aware of it. Conversations are more likely. It's an issue that has often been cloaked in a lot of shame and secrecy. So the amount we're talking about it is something that makes me very hopeful. On the other end, it is still such a significant issue. It's now been 2 years since it's been declared an epidemic. We continue to see the numbers of intimate partner violence similar to what it's been in the past. Like, for example, Waterloo Regional Police get about 6,400 domestic violence service calls in our region, which is always an enormous number when you say that to people. And that's been fairly steady, maybe a slight increase over other years. I think it's also good that people are also feeling like they're more likely to reach out, or when we're putting out messaging like she is your neighbor, people are looking out for their neighbors, and if they're worried about somebody, they're also more likely to call for help. So those numbers increasing slightly can also be a sign of people maybe reaching out more. The issue itself, we continue to see our shelters full, if not close to full, and needs like people reaching out to our crisis line for outreach support on a very regular basis at high numbers.
How does Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region respond to this issue in the community? What work are you doing to help?
We're really focusing on prevention. We know we ultimately want to work ourselves out of a job. And so we focus on things like we have a very robust youth education program. We're in the schools across the region. We are working with children in our shelter. I think sometimes people see shelters as a downstream sort of late response, but almost 50% of our residents in shelter are kids. So we know we need to work with them to break that intergenerational cycle of violence. We also are connecting with the community, offering a Safe Neighbors program, helping people if they're concerned about a loved one, that they might be being harmed, or they might even be contributing to that harm, and what do they do? What do they do to support them? And we also are now working with men who are voluntarily asking for help to create safer families. And we saw over 80 men voluntarily reach out to make change. So there is some really great things happening. A lot of these prevention and early intervention programs are things that we rely solely on fundraising dollars for. And that's really where our upcoming walk comes to play, because we're raising money for these important programs.
You mentioned that walk, and I alluded to it earlier as well, a very tangible way that the community can get involved in supporting your work. And given the presence of purple on November the 22nd, I think we'll all be aware of something significant happening in our community. But it's the Voices Empower Walk to Break the Silence on Saturday, November the 22nd, just a few weeks away. What can you tell us about it, Jen?
Yeah, it's our major fundraiser of the year. We've been walking together for the past few years post-pandemic. And I think last year we had about 250 walkers come out. This year we're hoping to reach over 300 walkers. We walk 6 kilometers for a very significant reason, because unfortunately, at least every 6 days, there is a woman that is killed by their intimate partner, and that's in Canada. And so we come together to show solidarity for survivors and to honor the lives that's been lost. We start the walk at Waterloo Town Square, where we all join together for some short speeches, a warm-up, and then we head down towards Kitchener and back, all up on King Street. And people that are unable to walk can definitely partake in some of the speeches and events that we have at Waterloo Town Square. So we hope everyone can come out, and it's also a fundraiser for us where people are registering for $6 and also doing some crowdfunding. It's really the power of a little goes a long way, and small donations really add up and make a huge difference for us.
How can we get involved if we're interested maybe in registering still as a walker, because I'm sure we have time, or looking for somebody we can make a donation to, maybe right to the cause? How can we learn more?
Yeah, go to our website at www.wcswr.org. And right on our main webpage, there's a bar to click on to learn more about the walk and to register. And we hope people can join us. And I have a fun little challenge going on with our staff. They challenged me to try to raise more funds than what they do, and they get to pie me in the face if I lose. So I'm working very hard to raise some funds.
I might have to throw a few bucks your way, Jen, just so you can avoid the indignity of getting pied. Oh, my goodness.
Yes, it's a heavy topic, so we need to also be a bit lighthearted and have some fun around this, too.
Good for you. Really appreciate the work that you and the entire team do at Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region. We'll point folks again to that website, wcswr.org. Learn more about Voices in Power. Maybe you want to register to walk on Saturday, November the 22nd. Voices in Power, the walk to break the silence. Jen, thank you so much for joining the show today, and keep up the good work.
Thanks so much, Mike.
Jennifer Hutton is the CEO at Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region. We have entered Woman Abuse Prevention Month. The Voices in Power Walk to End the Silence is on Saturday, the 22nd of November. You are welcome to join us for that 6-kilometer walk between Waterloo Public Square and Carl's Ayers Square in Kitchener. Raise some money and come together with our community to say we will not stand for violence against women. WCSWR.org is the website. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The question I have for you as we begin this week in music history this week is, how many uptown girls was Billy Joel in love with anyway? Every Monday morning at this time, we're joined by our good friend and musicologist Brian Allison for This Week in Music History. Brian's got a Facebook page of the same name that I would encourage you to follow along, This Week in Music History. And you can read all about these tidbits and more when you sign up on that page. This Week in Music History on Facebook. Good morning, Brian.
Hey, Mike.
How many uptown girls was Billy Joel in love with anyway this week in 1983?
Well, he's had a few. Billy's had lots of relationships. But yeah, I think the interesting part about Uptown Girl, so it was November 5th, 83 that Uptown Girl reached the number one spot on the singles chart. And it stayed there for 5 weeks. So it was a very popular song. People wanted to know, ultimately who the song was about. He was dating Christy Brinkley at the time, who was the supermodel, the it girl. So I think a lot of people just figured it was mainly written about Christy Brinkley. However, his previous relationship was with supermodel Elle Macpherson. And he actually said that he started to write the song about Elle Macpherson, shelved it for a period, and then continued to write the song once he began a relationship with Christy Brinkley. So not one, but two supermodels Billy Joel was dating in 1982-83, which is pretty cool.
Well before social media, of course, back in 82-83. But I remember reading some years ago, Brian, that your online profile picture can be deemed 15 to 20% sexier if you're holding a guitar in that picture. I guess the piano worked too for Billy Joel back in the day.
I think it's just a musician singer thing. I mean, it has been studied and proven that people are more attracted to people who are musically inclined, especially if they have celebrity status. I mean, you could go right back to any pop star or any music star in all likelihood increase their chances of attraction just by being involved in that particular thing. So, and Billy's a great guy. If you've ever, he has a documentary out now, which is quite good. Kind of goes into his entire history, and a hugely talented person. So I think it was warranted. But yeah, to be able to date two supermodels within a short period of time put him on legendary status for sure.
No question. Okay, this week in 1987, we had the youngest ever artist to top the Billboard Hot 100.
We did. The youngest artist at 15 years old, Tiffany became the youngest artist in history to top the 100. And it was a cover song of I Think We're Alone Now, originally recorded by Tommy James and the Shondells in 1967, but it took her right to the top. And I think it was pretty much the peak of Tiffany's career. She was a pop star of the mid-'80s and had a couple of more songs after that, but never quite as big as her first hit single. So yeah, it was pretty impressive. Another mononymous artist, and I thought that was pretty cool. The question I had asked was, who's the most famous mononymous artist of all time?
And you put together a nice list there. I would have defaulted initially, I think, to Madonna, but Beyonce now probably takes the prize.
Yeah, and they all have achieved like fame on a major level when you think about Bono and Prince and Madonna and Adele and Beyonce and so on and so on. I mean, these are just even going back to Liberace. I mean, he was huge in the 70s, right? So it's pretty impressive. But yeah, I think, oh gosh, Madonna, yeah, because I think she has the longevity for sure. But then Prince goes back to the late 70s as well. So it's kind of tough to pin on who would be the most famous one. I think if you polled, the name that comes to mind could very well be Madonna or maybe Prince.
I think you just gave me an idea for a future All Request Friday theme. Mononymous artists.
Mononymous artists only. Hey, that you could get a lot of mileage out of that for sure.
We just might do that. Okay, let's take a look at this week in 1977, and Martin Scorsese directs a concert documentary.
What a classic.
Oh, yeah.
So The Last Waltz premiered in New York on November the 4th, 1977. Yeah, I mean, directed by Martin Scorsese right then and there. You've got, some pretty legendary status. And this film, of course, captured the very last show of the band, which took place on Thanksgiving Day, 1976, at San Francisco's Winterland Ballroom, which is a major famous venue as well, now defunct. And yeah, lots of great stars performing with the band. You've got Joni Mitchell, you've got Neil Young, you've got Dr. John, Van Morrison, Eric Clapton, Neil Diamond. Incredible. Bob Dylan and Ronnie Hawkins made appearances as the band's former employees and front persons. And yeah, it's considered one of the greatest concert films of all time, and it was added to the Library of Congress National Film Registry in 2019, which also is a pretty impressive thing. I don't know, what's your favorite concert film of all time? There's some pretty good ones out there.
There are some pretty good ones out there, and I don't know if it really captures concert film or not, but I always enjoyed Live at Nebworth with Paul McCartney.
That's a good one for sure.
Yeah.
That's definitely one for sure. Yeah, I mean, the Woodstock one is pretty big if you can sit through the 12 or 14 hours that the main version is made up of. Rattle and Hum from U2 was pretty big. I always was partial to 101, which was the Depeche Mode movie, just because I was such a huge fan, and it sort of was this very underground band that went to the peak of their careers at that time in that show for 101 that was filmed in California. So pretty cool one as well. I think my better half would argue that the Eras Tour film is probably the biggest one. And when your concert film eclipses in sales what most people sell in a tour, that's pretty impressive. I mean, there's nobody bigger than Taylor right now.
No question about that. Okay, let's go to this week in 2009, Brian. You're a big Smiths fan. You want to go see Morrissey in concert, but that concert ends rather abruptly and prematurely.
Yeah, so somebody decided, that we're sitting close enough to stage that they were going to throw a beer bottle at Morrissey while he was performing, and he walked off the stage, said, well, I'm obviously not going to perform in front of, a crowd of 800 people if I'm going to be pelted with something, and you know, I would tend to agree that would be fairly insulting to me as a performer too. I'm baffled by that action. Like, what kind of a fan would go to a concert and pay money for a ticket and then pelt the person that they're came to see with an object? I don't understand what that's all about. Is it drunkenness? Is it just sheer stupidity? I mean, I went back and I looked, and it goes quite far back in history, right even to the Beatles. In the early days of Beatlemania, the group said in an interview in a magazine, a fan magazine, how much they loved jelly beans. And then after that, they were pelted with jelly beans every time they showed up for a live show. They finally had to ask fans, please stop throwing jelly beans at us, because, you know, from way out, that can be painful, especially if it hits you somewhere, you know, where you're sensitive. I was at a Guns N' Roses show where Axl Rose walked off the stage because somebody threw a bottle of water at him and hit him. The Oasis brothers, Noel and Liam, have walked off shows when they were pelted with coins, and then there was the Foo Fighters after they released the video for Big Me, which kind of made fun of Mentos mints. They were constantly belted with Mentos mints from then on to the point of injury. So I just don't get this behavior.
Didn't people bring craft dinner to Bare Naked Ladies shows too? As kind of, it was like a little bit like the Rocky Horror Picture Show thing when you throw stuff at the screen or whatever.
I'm sure that happened, yeah. But if I know Bare Naked Ladies fans, they were probably sort of laying them on the stage.
Yeah, good point.
Rather
good
than
point.
flinging them at the artist and injuring them.
I think you asked before, is it drunkenness? Is it stupidity? It's probably both, and one certainly brings out more of the other, doesn't it?
It's horrible, yeah. The Guns N' Roses that I was at show in Hamilton in 1992, I think it was not long after the famous St. Louis incident where, you know, he had ended a show because something had happened that he wasn't happy with, and they rioted and destroyed the entire venue. And, you know, police had to be called and everything. So it was a nervous moment because I was like, oh, my God, is this crowd going to go crazy and tear this place apart? But fortunately, being the Canadians we are, we just walked out of the theater shaking our heads. It
makes me think of Jeff Healey as the house band in the movie Roadhouse, where they had the screen, basically the chain link fence up in front of them. So when people threw things, which they did in that grimy old bar that Patrick Swayze came in to fix, he wouldn't get injured by the flying projectiles.
The chicken wire fence, I remember that from the movie. I also remember thinking, okay, this guy's a blind performer. Why would you throw something at him? Like, he can't even defend himself.
Exactly. Come on. Brian Allison joins us every Monday morning at 11 a.m. for a look at This Week in Music History. And it was this week in music history that the first rap record reached the top of the U.S. singles chart. And 55 years ago this week, a band you know very well today was newly formed and performing its first ever gig. We'll get into those stories as we continue This Week in Music History this morning on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. On Monday mornings at 11 a.m., we take a look at This Week in Music History, thinking back on and remembering the music that shaped our lives. There is a Facebook page of the same name that our guest, Brian Allison, operates. It's called This Week in Music History. Go check it out, follow along, and you'll get these tidbits and more each and every week as we continue our conversation this morning. And Brian, you always give me options for the start of our show of songs that I could potentially play to introduce you on a weekly basis. And I'm just going to be honest with you. I deliberately skipped by number one. I can only take so much of this song, which on This Week in 1990 became the first ever rap record to top the U.S. singles chart.
I tend to agree with you. I put it in there for listener recognition only, not a personal favorite either, but you can't deny how huge it was and how important it was.
Absolutely.
So it was, November 3rd, 1990, that Vanilla Ice became the first rap record to top the U.S. singles charts with Ice Ice Baby. And later also topped the charts in the UK as a number one. So it topped both sides of the Atlantic, which is very impressive in a rare feat. The track was initially released as a B-side to another cover. Ice had also covered a song called Play That Funky Music, and this was on the B-side. And they kind of thought initially they didn't see that it was going to be a marketable single, so that's why they put it over as a B-side. But DJs, when they were sent the single for Play That Funky Music, started flipping it over and playing Ice Ice Baby, and of course it became this massive number one hit. So yeah, pretty significant, the first rap record to top the U.S. charts. Also, to me, was a little bit sad in that, again, an art that was primarily formed and created by black artists had to be, basically co-opted by a white artist to reach the top of the chart. We saw this even back in the 50s when, Little Richard recorded a song and then a white artist would come along and cover it, and they would get a lot more play because that's how society still feels. So I remember thinking that even in 1990, wow, this white guy kind of stole the thunder from all of these black artists who had created this genre.
Well, and it's interesting you talk about going back to the 50s and Little Richard and white artists covering his songs to make them hits or palatable to the majority of the audience. And I believe it was you on this show several weeks ago that taught us the very origin of the cover song, and that was the whole idea, to cover up the blackness of the original artist.
That's exactly it, for sure, yeah. So, and even though Ice Ice Baby wasn't an actual cover song, he had sampled, of course, from the Queen song Under Pressure, although he later disagreed with that, said that he hadn't stolen it, that his dun 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 was a little bit different than the Queen one, which obviously was a load of you-know-what.
Indeed it was. All right, we know them well today, but back on This Week in 1970, 55 years ago, I'll bet you nobody knew what this band was all about, as it had just formed to play its first ever gig.
Yeah, how cool would it have been to be at Nipmuc Regional High School in Mendon, Massachusetts on the 6th of November, 1970. I was just a young infant at that time, only 8 months old. I don't even think you were born at that time yet.
I was not, about 9 months away from the birth.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would have been pretty cool to be there to see Aerosmith perform their first ever gig as a band. It was at a high school. And again, just very humble beginnings for a band that became literally the best-selling American rock band of all time, eventually over a 55-plus year career. They sold 150 million albums worldwide, and they still hold the record for the most gold and multi-platinum albums by an American group. So arguably the biggest American band ever. They were often considered to be America's answer to the Rolling Stones. They were, the bad boys of rock and roll for many, many years, of course, and just recently gave up touring, but, an incredible group, an incredible band.
And finally, Brian, before we let you go today, I think when people think about the Police, not the ones we see in our communities and on our streets, but the band, they will always default to Synchronicity as the defining album. But it was on This Week in 1978 that the Police released their debut album, and it came with a different name than originally intended.
Yeah, it came out of the gate pretty strong in 1978. So the Police had been around for a few years. They were initially kind of a more raw punk band, but changed their sound a little bit to make it more palatable to radio, I think, and they released their debut album Outlandos D'Amour on November the 2nd, 1978. The original title was going to be called Police Brutality, which I think is kind of catchy, but I think at the time they thought, it's a little too obvious, we shouldn't do that. So they changed it to something a little more romantic. Outlandos D'Amour basically means outlaws of love. So, yeah, and some really incredible music on that record. The lead single, of course, was Roxanne, which kind of put the Police on the map. And then you've got Can't Stand Losing You and So Lonely. Great, great records at the time, still beloved by many fans today. And it would peak at number 6 in the UK charts and 23 in the United States, which isn't too bad for a small-time band from the UK. They did very well with that release. And, yeah, as you said, by the time that final album, Synchronicity, came out in 83, they were just arguably the biggest band on the planet at that point, and strangely pulled the plug at that point too, said, you know what, I think we're done with this. I always thought that was a little bit odd that Sting walked away from the Police at the peak of their success.
You know what? Artists are going to be artists, aren't they? They're eccentric dudes and gals.
And there was a lot of strife
There
within
was.
that band.
Yeah.
There was some significant internal issues and band members that weren't getting along and were tired of each other and disagreements. So I think Sting probably just decided, I've had enough of this. I can do well as a solo artist, which has proven to be correct. He's done very well as a solo artist, although he did come back to the Police for a reunion tour, which was incredibly successful.
It's funny what money will do, huh?
Oh, I'm sure it had something. Not that Sting needed the money.
I know,
I'm sure
it's
the other
true.
guys didn't either. But yeah, I mean, when somebody's dangling you, the potential to make multi-millions, even close to $1 billion for a tour, I don't know how you'd say no.
Absolutely. Always fun, Brian. Enjoy your these trips down musical memory lanes with you. Thanks for being here.
Okay, Mike. See you next Monday.
Brian Allison is a musicologist. He operates a Facebook page by the same name. Check it out. Subscribe to it. Follow along. This week in music history, you'll get these tidbits and more. Loved the tidbit about Tiffany, the youngest artist to ever top the Billboard Hot 100 when she was just 15. Mononymous, just one name. Tiffany, Adele, Beyonce, Madonna, Prince. We could have some fun with that on All Request Friday sometime. But I'll let you know right now, as we enter this week, the federal budget's dominating the news cycle, right? So we're going to tie our All Request Friday into that. And your theme for this week will be money. Songs about money. Money for nothing. The song Money by Pink Floyd. Whatever you want to do to get a song with a theme of money. That's going to be our All Request Friday theme this week. Drop me an email, mike@570news.com. Or when you call in, let us know the song you would like to hear. It must be money related. This week in music history on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Now that cat couldn't spell to win a bet, but he carried this battered notebook full of his poetry. More soul per square word than the Lord's Prayer. He was the kind of guy that called a spade a shovel, and a violin a fiddle, and a lady ma'am. And I don't even know why I think of him now. Maybe because he never told me a lie he'd have to apologize for later. Because he'd speak to a guy straight, eyeball to bloodshot eyeball, like he'd never even had a secret.
Just to remind you and make it abundantly clear, that is not David Drewe narrating his own introduction. It is our good friend and talented local artist, Scott Wicken, who performed Crazy Dave, which was not even intended for David Drewe, but it just seemed to fit with the theme. I bring that reminder this morning because of the email received last week inquiring as to the origins of that spoken word piece that welcomes David Drewe to the show every Monday morning.
My favorite Scott Wicken line is from a different one of his spoken words, and he and a friend come to the realization that those big apartment buildings, they're nothing but filing cabinets for people.
That's actually pretty good, too.
Yeah, he has a lot of good insights.
Look up Scott Wicken. It would be worth your time, and maybe you'll catch him performing at some point. David Drewe, who is with us now, former Conservative Party staffer, as you know, and the founder of Negotiating Change, Government Relations, Stakeholder Engagement Strategies, joins us every Monday morning, 11:30, for Drew's Views. It is budget week. How excited are you, Drew's Views?
Well, it's budget day tomorrow and financial statement Thursday for the province.
The province, that's right. That's the 6th already. Woo-hoo.
Well, yeah.
Here we go. Here we go.
Well, this is all going to be quite crazy, and I am not laying down predictions on what's going to be in the budget because as much, we've had a whole lot of signals from the Mark Carney government as to a lot of the things that are going to be in this budget. But I don't think we've scratched the surface. I can't believe that what we've seen so far is anywhere near what the headline is going to be intended by the government. Forget about what the unintentional headlines might be when we look at the red ink. So I'm expecting to be surprised. I'm expecting it to be huge. And we have not had a budget. Like, this is normally the time of year where you have financial statements. But last year when we were going to have the financial statement, the finance minister refused to deliver it, and that led to the whole going down of the Justin Trudeau government. So it's been a long time since we've had an update on what the numbers are. And you just sort of wonder what the value of the provincial statement is going to be on Thursday, because it's already at the printer. So they're going to find out what the transfer payments are and all sorts of stuff like that and already be committed to making their spending plans without that knowledge. So
I think when you talk about the federal budget and what the numbers are, I'm even more curious about what the numbers will be. And I don't mean by that the size of the deficit. We know it's going to be an astronomical number that will make many uncomfortable, myself included. But if this is to be that transformational budget, and I do believe the former central banker is going to look at our economy and our growth differently. And that's what I'm really curious about in this budget.
Yes, that is going to be very interesting. The question is, how do you have an eat your vegetables budget? I'm not sure. It's been a long time. And governments, and I'm speaking from Brian Mulroney to Paul Martin to Stephen Harper and Jim Flaherty, when you have to make hard choices, you generally don't get credit for the long-term benefits. So I am wishing Mark Carney all the best in the world, but for a decade, we've seen what his backbench does in the face of public opinion pressure. And so I am a little bit worried that we might be getting a little bit more sugar than we need.
Who is Mark Carney most concerned with? Us, the people who voted him into office, or the 337 other MPs who will vote on the budget?
Well, I think he's more concerned about us, but the means to the end is the MPs. And I mentioned in the notes that, budgets are always about buying votes. And I say that cynically, but not as a partisan. Like, it's true of every government. You want to stay in government to accomplish the big things that you need to do. So sometimes you do these stupid little things that will help you get the big things done. But generally, you're looking at the public and asking the public to put the pressure on the MPs. And just the way this is going, I'm seeing the possibility where they're targeting the MPs quite directly. And say, random NDP MP. Or let's actually pick on Dr. Matt Strauss. He's local. So they put something in the budget that is so good for Toyota that there's no way Matt Strauss could vote against it. So his leader gives him permission to abstain. And then there's another one in the Quebec riding to save the copper plant that is apparently might be Globe and Mail has on Norm to say shutting down. That's one Bloc MP who might be able to abstain. So there's a definite possibility that they could find these nation-building projects that they are running on and quite legitimately target individual MPs for the abstention. NDP came out today saying, heck, we might abstain. That's possible. And it's not a good look when you abstain as a party. So I hope they have a better option, because they really need some good news.
And I'm sorry, I should have said 342 other MPs. I'm still not used to this 343 yet. I'm still stuck on 338.
But what I am most curious about for the budget tomorrow is not about how it passes or what they're planning on spending. It's what's coming in. How much revenue has been affected detrimentally by the uncertainty and the tariffs already? And what is that going forward? Like, we can control how much we choose to spend in a whole lot of ways, but we cannot control how much we are collecting in taxes. We cannot control layoffs caused by tariffs. So those are the numbers I'm most interested in. It's not about how much are we spending. It's about what's our inputs going to be like for the next 5 or 6 years at this. And, none of us should be trusting the long terms right now, because, heck, Trump might wake up tomorrow and put a tariff on everything of 70%. So who knows? But we are, apparently we got $3 billion in tariff revenue counter tariff revenue before we canceled them. I'm thinking that's going to be a drop in the bucket compared to what we've lost.
Okay, let's move on to the U.S. ambassador to Canada, Hoekstra. I don't even know how to say his name, but boy, oh boy, has he got a mouth on him.
Oh, yeah. Like, honestly, does he kiss his mother with that mouth? No, like you talk about the ugly American, and this guy is the ugliest. He, like, as an ambassador, to be cussing at another diplomat, you don't know the job. Now, this guy was the ambassador to the Netherlands until they asked him to leave because he was behaving the same way there. I don't know. I don't know. I still think we have to make a mockery of Hoekstra. We have to keep making fun of this joker so that every time Trump is hearing about his ambassador to Canada, he's hearing that he's a laughing stock who's embarrassing the country and the president. But now we have Donald Trump getting up and saying Canada apologized for the ad, which Mark Carney has acknowledged we did. But then there's this second part of the sentence coming out of his mouth that it makes it seem like was the reason for our apology. And he's saying, because everybody knows Ronald Reagan loved tariffs. Canada apologized to me because everybody knows Ronald Reagan loved tariffs.
But Ronald Reagan did not love tariffs.
Yeah, and Donald Trump's a crazy boob, but they still elected him. Like, that's just it. He is now up there, and he's got the biggest pulpit, the biggest microphone, and he just has to keep repeating, Canada apologized, Ronald Reagan loves tariffs. And the impression that the American voter is going to have is that Canada misled because Ronald Reagan loved tariffs, and we put up an ad that said otherwise.
How can Canadian musical icon Neil Young and the Prime Minister wannabe Doug Ford work to end this madness?
Oh, this is my dream scenario. So, like, Neil Young gets Doug's one. Hey, Doug, what you doing, man? Okay, so you got that ad. I want to pay for the runs. I'm going to put that ad up all over the U.S. Somebody like Neil Young, who hates Trump and is like pulling his music off of places that support Trump, you know, Neil, why don't you do something relevant? Take some of your millions and start putting this ad up again. And everybody in Canada could go, it's some dude from California who's doing it. Wouldn't that be amazing if all of a sudden some Martin Short, like these Canadians in America, started funding the ad on their own?
They'd find themselves getting iced pretty quickly.
And that would be pretty amazing, too, because I think a lot of these Americans don't even realize that Martin Short's a Canadian.
David Drewe joins us Monday mornings, 11:30 for Drewe's Views here on the program. Speed cameras, child pornography, and conservation, not conversation. Still to come. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Monday mornings, 11:30, David Drewe. Owner, negotiating change, government relations, stakeholder engagement strategies, and a former Conservative Party staffer joins us in studio for Drewe's Views. We've talked about the budget. We've talked about the U.S. ambassador to Canada. Let's talk about everybody's favorite subject, David. The best part for me is it will only be our favorite subject for another 11 days. Be gone. Good riddance for bad rubbish. Speed cameras are soon to be history.
For the record, I have driven 15 over the limit in a 30 zone with a camera, and I got no tickets.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm putting that to the test this afternoon.
Yeah,
as
that's why I brought it up, because I heard that on my drive-in.
Yeah,
so
I'm going to do 48 in a 40 and see, because I've heard from people saying they get tickets at 3 or 4 over, and I don't believe them, frankly.
I don't either, but I did like one thing you said. I've always thought there should be a surcharge on the ticket that goes up as a percentage you are over the limit as well. Because I think 5 kilometers over the limit in a 30 zone or 5 kilometers over the limit on the 401 are two radically different offenses. And, you know, you're doing 20 over the limit in a 30 zone, you might as well be speed racing.
Yes.
You like, that's just it. I think there should be some severity to it by the proportion you are over, not just the raw amount.
Very interesting. So you are no fan of speed cameras. However, you think you could do a better job of defending their usage.
Yeah, I was reading the article in the Record. Waterloo region councillors are left with questions as province hits brakes on speed cameras. And I don't know if this is evidence of where things are at or if it was just bad talking point development. But nobody thought about the children. Like, the entire point of this is supposedly to save lives. But through the entire article, it's like, we're going to lose the money for these other traffic calming measures. And it came across as a bunch of accountants talking about how needs are going to be met. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I am against these stupid things, but I could defend them better than that. You know what? They do slow people down sometimes. And I could make the argument, well, how much is a life worth? La-dee-da. Won't someone think of the children? But when you have an entire article talking about it and the entire thing is about, well, now we're going to have trouble spending money on these other things, which are traffic calming measures, which could lead to, but no, get to the point.
Well, and the thing about it was, I picked up the same thing in that article, David. It made it sound every bit like a revenue stream, a.k.a. a cash grab. So if it's not a revenue stream.
Well, it's not just that the article did. It's that's how the politicians talked about it.
Right.
They didn't talk about any lives being put in jeopardy or any safety being compromised. They talked about budget concerns. So maybe that's the way the reporter asked the questions. But that's where message discipline comes in. And if you ask me, well, do you have any budget concerns about this? It's going to be like, well, the budget is the means to the end. I have concerns about the safety of the children on our streets.
So nice.
But just because you're asked about a budget thing doesn't mean you answer with the budget thing. It was Justin Trudeau's Liberals frustrated me, and I've talked about this with you all to heck, is because they would always lead with the dollar amount, not what they were buying for the dollars. And in some cases, like the superclusters, you could see there was pretty good reason for them not to be able to talk about what the deliverables were. But in so many cases, they could talk about the deliverables, but they don't. They just talk about the numbers. And that's what this news article came out to me as.
All right. The Supreme Court of Canada issued a big one on Friday. Could have been Thursday. I think it was Friday. Either way, when it comes to child pornography. And two men were essentially let off, became the precedent for this Supreme Court ruling on child pornography in this country.
Yeah. And the more you read about this, the more you will lose faith in our justice system. And I'm saying that regrettably and cowardly because I don't know that we have a better way to do things. Because as I put in the notes, the Supreme Court is not final because they are all knowing. They are all knowing just because they're final. Like, that's why the buck stops there. But what they did in this case was the dude had hundreds of issues of images, of toddler pornography. And the court threw it out because rather than looking at was it reasonable for him, they created a theoretical test of the law. And in that theoretical test, it was one dude who shared one intimate picture of his girlfriend with another dude who inadvertently caught it on his phone. And so because that law might not apply fairly to this hypothetical case, this child predator got left out, let go. And I don't think there's any Canadian in the world who sits there and says, well, the courts should be creating these absolutely farcical scenarios to create reasons to disallow laws. So you've got everyone from Wab Kinew to Doug Ford to Pierre Poilievre calling on the federal government to use the notwithstanding clause. And I'm on their side. I am totally on their side. It's like when the provincial courts all of a sudden use the charter to say we need bike lanes in Toronto. I am sorry. If you think bike lanes have anything to do with the charter, you have no business being on the bench. So when you start getting encroachment rulings like this, of course we need a notwithstanding clause. And I hate the fact that I say we need it.
So I think what you're getting at here, because I don't know that the scenario, the hypothetical that the court created is farcical at all. I think what's farcical is the belief or the idea that it would ever end up in a court of law.
Exactly. The Crown Attorney would choose that case to put resources on when everything else is going on.
Exactly. So the Supreme Court said no mandatory minimum 1-year sentence for a child pornography charge.
And that's the other thing, Mike. But imagine you had a 16-year-old daughter, and the Supreme Court's like, well, that dude who had the kiddie porn of her, that's not worth a year. Like, just think about the scenario that they used to say it's not worth a year.
Well, the scenario they use, though, is two high school lovers.
Mm-hmm.
They may share an intimate image. They're under the age of 18. Do you put that young man or young woman in jail for a mandatory 1 year because they possess the intimate image of their high school lover? That's the question. And it would likely never get to court. But David, you got to know, as hypothetical as it may have been in the Supreme Court's decision, this is happening. I guarantee you there are high school kids out there with intimate pictures of their intimate partners right now.
Oh, yeah. And they're all going to get away with it scot-free now.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
David, you know that when you were in high school, if we had access to cell phone technology, we would have had similar images on our phones.
You know, though, I can't imagine
ever showing it to anybody else?
No, my dad had really bad arthritis, so there's no way he could have hit me. But if something like that came up, he would have borrowed a neighbor. No, seriously, but that's just it. Yeah, there would have been somebody. But you know what I mean? I could have been trafficking drugs in high school, but I knew there'd be consequences, so I didn't.
That's okay. Now you're talking.
Yeah,
yes.
Consequences.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, you know what? You're keeping your nudie pics of your girlfriend on your phone? Not even worth a year.
Yeah, it's wild.
Never mind the fact that the actual dude who got off was a serial predator in the worst of kiddie porn.
I know. As you said in your notes, Canada is the best country in the world if you're into child pornography.
Cue the Toronto Star.
Cue the Toronto Star. David Drewe owns Negotiating Change, Government Relations and Stakeholder Engagement Strategies. Joins us Monday mornings, 11:30 for
And I'm
Drew's
hanging
Views.
for phone calls.
I was going to say, we didn't get to the conservation conversation. We can do that and whatever else, because Rant or Rave is coming up and David is staying here with us. I wonder how much of that baseball game he watched on Saturday. We could put him to the test or whatever happens in the next hour. David's sticking around for some phone calls today on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night.
Don't talk back.
But, David Drewe, could I learn to play yakety yak on the guitar? Something you and I were talking about during that news update.
I'm sure it's possible. I've never even taken a look to see how complicated it would actually be, but I have faith in you.
I appreciate you. David Drewe joins us every Monday morning, 11:30 for Drew's Views. And he said, I haven't stuck around for calls for a while, so he's sticking around for calls today. It's our Rant or Rave hour. We do it every Monday from noon until 1, and you can get David's perspective on things today as well. Phone lines are already very busy, so let's get right to it. Sean, you start us off. Good afternoon. Rant or Rave?
I don't know.
Well, we'll be the judges of that then.
Okay, I had a disturbing interaction at the Cambridge Farmers Market on Saturday morning. I was waiting in line and I was talking to a person. The subject turns to politics as it sometimes does. And this person described Mark Carney as a devil. Okay, a little bit of hyperbole. We all have our views and all that. And I thought, okay, why is Mark Carney the devil? And she went on to describe this whole thing about this conspiracy to form a world government and how we're all going to have chips in our heads and stuff. And she was totally serious. And I'm thinking, okay, how are we going to deal with, people really, really believe this. How are we going to deal with this?
Okay, we'll get into that in just a second, but I want to ask you one thing first. And because you said you're at the Cambridge Farmers Market and you're having a casual conversation which turned to politics as it usually does. Why?
Yeah.
Can't the Cambridge Farmers Market at least be a safe space from political talk?
Was this a stranger?
No, I didn't say usually. I said as it sometimes does.
Well,
no, but was this a stranger or?
It was a stranger. We were just discussing in line, and I actually we were joking. We were joking about Trump originally, and somehow it got onto Mark Carney, And then we mentioned, well, at least our prime minister is a banker and he sure knows what he's doing. And then that's when she said about the whole devil thing.
Gotcha. Okay. Sean, appreciate that. David, I'd love your perspective on this because as somebody that works in the business that I work in, and I confess, part of my response to this is biased by the fact that we, the collective royal we in mainstream media, used to be the be-all and end-all for information. I'm okay with us not being that anymore. What I'm far less than okay with are all of these other information sources that are the furthest thing from reality, but that's from where I sit. What do you make of this? How do you combat something like that?
Well, I've been noticing that among my more right-leaning friends, Mark Carney can't catch a break. And I tend to be in that position where I am defending Mark Carney. It's like, wait a minute. He's chasing a pipeline. He killed the carbon tax. He got rid of the digital services tax. He got rid of the capital gains increases that were going to be so destructive to our economy. All these things that we've been calling for years. Oh, yeah, but he didn't do this, 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 or this. And it's like, okay, yeah, I'm not saying he's Jesus here. But can you picture any of the other liberal big people who might have ended up as prime minister doing anything close to this? And that's where they finally go, well, okay, yeah.
Okay, but what if they don't go, okay, yeah, and they're like, no, he wants to implant you with a microchip to follow your every mood, well,
and that's just it. I will have all the patience.
The World Economic Forum, that's what I was looking for.
No, but that's just it. If it's friends or acquaintances or people I'm going to be having extended contact with, I will invest the time to have the conversation on this is going to sound so wrong, but it's almost like dealing with a dementia patient where you're humoring them and nodding along and trying to get them to remember what the actual happening was. You're not trying to provoke them or anything. But if it's a stranger in line, it's like, yeah, and I'm worried about that too. And I might even try to stoke them up a little bit more just to wind them up so they say something even stupider to the next person.
I want to be ambivalent to it, but I can't be because they walk among us, David. But they're getting this information from some corner of the internet, and they're taking it as gospel, and I think we ought to try to check that.
Yeah, I, in theory, like that idea, but good luck.
I know. I get you. Okay, let's continue along. Kyle, you're next. Rant or rave?
Amen. I got a question, actually, for David or you. The NDP doesn't have official party status. Now, you were talking about we could be going into a potential election, and I think on the news they said a minimum of 2 or 3 votes they need to go on. I think it was the Liberal side to stop an election. How does that work? If they don't have official party status, one, wouldn't they be looking to actually go against Carney's government because of how things have gone in the past when they did actually help Trudeau, and they've lost more and more of their, populace, I guess you could say, or their whatever you want to call it. And, how much is this going to even cost us taxpayers if we go to another election is my other question. But, yeah, how does that all tie in? Thank you very much and have a great day, guys.
Go ahead, David.
To deal with the last first, I never care about the cost of an election. It's like, what price democracy? I'm not ever going to say an election is a waste of money. If we end up here because the parties couldn't get along and we have an election, that's the right way to settle it. We delegate power to these people. If they cannot agree, they send it back to us to make the decision again. And hopefully we return a result that might be a little bit more clear. And if we don't, then they have to knock their heads together and get along. Now, it's the NDP's motivations. That's the most interesting of all of this, because on the one hand, they are the least equipped to fight an election right now out of all the parties. On the other hand, they have such great ability to locally target ridings that if they have a leader this time who says vote NDP rather than vote to stop Conservatives, they could easily get themselves party status back just by dumb luck of the draw and trying to win this time as opposed to last time. So I don't think anybody wants an election. I really don't think anybody wants an election. But nobody wants to look like they are running away from an election, and nobody wants to compromise.
You painted the picture, though, earlier during Drewe's Views, and I think you nailed it. if there's that morsel in there that makes one MP strongly supportive, but that would go against party lines, they just abstain. The votes that abstain tomorrow are the votes that will keep this government alive.
Or, it might be that the NDP votes in favor of the budget, or, and I'm also painting a scenario where the leaders would allow that to happen. Where, okay, Mark Carney, you have done this that gives us the graceful way to allow you to stay in power because we didn't want the election either. But it doesn't sound like anybody is chasing this. Like, if you hear Stephen McKinnon talking, he basically went after the Bloc so bad in saying they wanted an election that the next day the Bloc leader was asked about it, and he said, well, we were in talks with them, but apparently I'm a jerk, so we're not doing that anymore.
Speaking of official party status, the provincial Liberals, tangent a bit, do have official party status, right? I just heard Speaker Skelly refer to them as the third party the other day, and it caught me off guard. But I guess they can't be the official opposition because they're not. So when the House Speaker refers to them, they become the third party. But they do have official party status provincially.
Yes.
Yeah, they got out of the minivan and got back into provincial official party status.
And now if you really want to go down geek lane, there's a difference between a registered party and an official party. So even though Elizabeth May, as a caucus of one, does not have official party status in the House of Commons, it still says Green Party underneath her name when she speaks in the House because the Green Party is registered. So there are some recognition privileges you get even if you don't have party status, but no dollars.
Okay, I like that. I'll take that geekdom any day. Dave is next on Rant or Rave today. Farwell's Force official member number 47. Good afternoon, Dave.
Good afternoon, Mike. As usual, or very often, I like to give a positive shout-out to 3 sports issues over the weekend. The first one is the Hong Kong Open winner, the Canadian teenager who won her second tournament.
Is this golf, Dave?
Pardon me?
Golf?
No, tennis.
Okay, the Hong Kong Open. I was oblivious to the Hong Kong Open on the weekend.
And it's the same teenager who won the Canadian or whatever it was called in Toronto.
Okay.
Or Montreal. I think it was Toronto. Young teenager. Her rank went from 333 in the world to now 18, I believe. So she's doing quite well. But don't ask me her name as usual because I can't give it.
That's fine.
The second one is to the shortly to be announced, or has already minutes ago been announced, our new millionaire who is a follower of the Toronto Blue Jays, who won the 50-50 draw.
$24 million, that draw.
Right. But do you know who it is? I don't.
I have not the foggiest. It wasn't me. I didn't get a call from Joe Carter.
You got it. And the third one is to the NFL, specifically 2 teams. One, your Steelers, who played an unbelievable game and won that game, which the odds were they were not supposed to win it, but they won it. So I'll give a shout out for you because I know you're a follower. And the second on the same vein was the game of the weekend, which was the Buffalo Bills beating the Kansas City. So, which was a real hard game.
Dave, all of that and not one word about the Toronto Blue Jays?
Well, how long do you want me to go on? Positive on the Blue Jays itself, and if I give a shout-out positive, then I got to give a negative at the same time. And it's not who you expect me to give a negative to. It's a negative to all the negative people who love to sit on the couch in the basement and do nothing but criticize and point fingers at the the individual players who did this and did that and did this other, and all that nonsense. And I really support the Blue Jays and what they did this year. And yes, they could have won. They could have won it on Friday. That's the issue. But to me, they had a positive team and a positive year, and I'm very positive on the Blue Jays.
All right, Dave. Thank you very much for the call. David Drewe in studio with me, enjoying your calls today. How does it feel today to have been blissfully oblivious to all the Blue Jays madness this weekend?
It felt like any other weekend.
Yeah, my heart has still not been repaired.
Yeah. The listeners don't. I'm getting ready for a move. And so I've been quite able to have my mind occupied and not realize I've been missing things lately because I feel like I'm always behind on one detail or another.
Well, it saved you the heartbreak for sure. David Drewe stays in studio with us for another few minutes or so, taking calls on Rant or Rave today. We continue on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every day from noon until 1, we open the phone lines so that you get to have your say on this radio station. And on Mondays, in keeping with long-standing tradition, it is Rant or Rave during Talkback. Let's get right back to the phones. Tony, good afternoon. Rant or Rave?
I got a big rant, Mike.
All right.
It's a big one. I'm a little upset that Joe Carter didn't call me.
You wanted the 24 mil, eh, Tony?
25.
Is that what it got up to? Holy Hannah. Yeah,
just a little over 25. So that's my rant for the day. I'm just a little upset that I didn't get the call. It would have taken the sting out of losing that Game 7. That was a real heartbreaker.
It was a heartbreaker, but you're right. $25 million goes a long way towards mending a broken heart.
Absolutely. That's my rant for the day, guys. You have a good day.
Thanks, Tony. Good to hear from you. Oh, yeah, we play those lotteries. Listen, that's a nice 50-50. It's not your typical Stag and Doe 50-50 when it gets up to 25 schmil.
Yeah, that's like, hey, I could pay off my credit cards.
And then some, yeah. And my credit cards. I want to go back to something you had on your notes, David, for Drew's Views today, because it was something that also caught my ear on the weekend. Actually, my eye first, and then I went back and listened to Environment Minister Todd McCarthy's media conference from Friday. But the announcement that our provincial government is going to consolidate, which I'm a big fan of, generally speaking, 36 conservation authorities in this province. And I'm not really sure the intent of the consolidation, so I don't know where this goes, but it seems to have caught your attention too.
Well, yes. I'm like you. I like the idea of all these independent agencies working more closely together, and integration seems a better way to do it than just to have the CEOs get together once a year and chat. But I really don't understand the goal. There's something murky about development being sped up. But okay, is this the only way to go about it? Is this the best way to go about it? Now, I have a cottage on Conestoga Lake, so we rent that cottage from the GRCA over long-term leases. So this is a little bit of an interest to me in that particular event as well, is who's my landlord going to be? And we are coming up for a period of extended lease renewal, which is rather complicated, and we don't even know who's going to be sitting across the table from us. So that's the personal side of this, but all across the rest of it, though, it's the mandate going to be changing? Is it really just a case of amalgamating administration for streamlining, or is this a case of the mandates will change as well? And I don't want to sit here and say that the mandates they have now are perfect and should ever be locked in stone, but I'm very curious. That's all I can say about this is I'm hoping for the best, but there's a lot of wrinkles here that I am very curious about that we don't know yet.
You and me both. And when we talk about development and conservation authorities, I'm not so sure I want development on that kind of land.
Yeah. Sensitive watersheds, water drinking recharge areas. These are things we really, really need to pay attention to, and pardon the pun, because there are a lot of downstream consequences.
Amen to that. Okay, before David's time is up and we get to the news update, let's quickly go to Andre for a rant or rave today. Hi, Andre.
Hi, Mike. Happy Monday. And hi, Double D.
Hey,
Love you guys. Miss you. So yeah, too much sport. I'm a little hangover here, but that's fine. I got one for I got a rave for James Sebastian Scott. Go Montreal Alouette. And go for your wife's team.
I have no idea what that means, but Andre, we're running out of time, and
Okay.
David has limited time.
It's just that James Sebastian Scott is a big Winnipeg Bomber fan, and Montreal over again.
Hope he's listening.
I hope so too.
And I was wondering if David Drewe had a CFL team that he liked.
Oh, it's
CFL.
get to know David
Yeah,
better before he becomes prime minister.
I don't follow lacrosse.
That's good. You know what's funny about that is because it's about it. No, I shouldn't. I'm not. I'm going to stop myself before I get all kinds of people upset. I love me some lacrosse. I do not love me some CFL. So there you go. And I don't know what team James Sebastian Scott's wife cheers for. But anyway, that was just out of the blue.
James is in real estate now, so if anybody is looking for a real estate agent,
that's David Schooley, the negotiator. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I would just like to point that out, but I just thought that was a little bit out of the blue, as in the Blue Bombers from Winnipeg. I don't know how Andre keeps tabs on so many people, especially with all the wine that he usually drinks, but nonetheless. Thank you very much for being here and sticking around today, David.
I had fun. Now I'm going to have lunch with my wife.
Oh, aren't you a lucky guy?
I am.
All right. Enjoy that and come back next Monday at 11:30, okay?
Oakley Dokley.
David Drewe, Monday mornings, 11:30 with Drew's Views. We do rant or rave from noon to 1 immediately thereafter, and we continue that on the Mike Farwell Show. We're going to get you an update from the 570 News Center and then get back to your calls on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. On Mondays between noon and 1, we open the phone lines so that you can have the opportunity to rant and or rave. Rant because you're upset about something. You need to get it off your chest and onto the air. Rave because you want to sing someone's or something's praises, like Dave did earlier with the Hong Kong Open and some teenage tennis phenom from Canada that won it. I mean, Dave brings the obscure to rant or rave here on the program. Right back to the phones we go. Mayor Jake, your worship, good afternoon.
Mike, how are you now?
I'm good, and you?
Not so bad, thanks. So I've been seeing something kind of circulating online about this guy, Mike, that owns Dutchies. And I've seen some pretty brutal things about him, and I was just wondering if I could challenge him to a charity boxing match, and the money will go towards the employees that lost all of it.
Well, that would be the challenge, getting the money. I guess you want to raise the money as like a GoFundMe, crowdfund to help the employees.
That's right.
Okay.
And then all the proceeds go to them, and that guy gets what it has coming to him.
There you go. It's an interesting idea. Thanks, Mayor Jake. I appreciate it. It's a story that's well documented in the news, and I saw the headline over the weekend that after 15 years, the store was going to be closing its Waterloo location, to which I just kind of rolled my eyes and said, yeah, no kidding, because it's been pretty rotten with employees not being paid. As I said, well documented over these last many months. The employees have been given some support, but the way this all breaks down, and I remember commenting on it, I don't have the story in front of me, but once it wasn't a full-on bankruptcy, but whatever financial hardship that the former owner of the store claimed, it protected whatever assets were there from being used to pay the employees. I can't remember all the details. The bottom line is it didn't seem as though the people who, in good conscience and in good faith, performed services for the company, went in, did their hours, and never got paid for them, and they lose out in this entire ordeal. Very frustrating when the system doesn't seem to get it right. And this is absolutely a case where the system does not seem to get it right. And therefore, Mayor Jake would like to challenge the former owner to a charity boxing match, and all monies raised would be given to those employees who got hosed in all of this. Speaking of not getting things right, David Drewe and I talked about this in the last half hour, in the last hour during Drewe's Views, and that Supreme Court of Canada decision that decided that 1 year, a mandatory minimum sentence of 1 year for child pornography offenses was unconstitutional. And I heard Rob Snow talking about this on Friday afternoon as well. And I got to say, look, on the surface, when you hear that ruling, the Supreme Court of Canada rules that it's unconstitutional to sentence somebody for a minimum of 1 year in jail for child pornography offenses. It gets your back up in a big way. There we are again being soft on crime. But what we have to remember here, and this is where it gets to be a gray area, and believe you me, I think it should be way more than 1 year for child pornography offenses. I'm not even going to go any further down the path. I think I speak for many of you when I say that. Like, come on with your coming on. But the hypothetical scenario that the Supreme Court used in arriving at its decision is not one that I would think is uncommon. Remember, anyone under the age of 18 is a minor. So if you have a 17 and 16-year-old high school student who are dating and they exchange intimate images with one another, and then one of those people who had received the intimate image is caught with it on their phone or shows it to somebody else, they have suddenly shared child pornography because you're under the age of 18. Certainly, if somebody like that appeared before the court and all of a sudden they are sentenced to 1 year minimum of prison time because they accessed and or made available child pornography, that would seem excessively punitive in that case. Let's forget for a minute, like, honest to goodness, how many parents have had the conversation with their kids about the digital age, how it lives forever, and you ought not share images like that. It's a whole other issue. But I think we can see where the court was coming from in that regard. What the court overlooked, though, and what David and I agreed on when we talked about it about an hour ago, is the fact that a case like that is highly unlikely. It's so unlikely that it would ever even end up in court, pressing the charges to lead to time before a justice and a sentence of any kind. Because that is the innocence, if you will, of youth that we're always trying to protect with the Youth Criminal Justice Act. But anyway, that was the reasoning that the court used for declaring unconstitutional mandatory minimum sentences of 1 year for child pornography offenses. We're allowed to cast opinion on the judgment, and I think the Supreme Court got this one wrong because they created a hypothetical scenario. While perfectly plausible, it would never end up going so far as being a charge before a court. And that's where I think the Supreme Court got this one wrong. Nonetheless, just wanted to go down that road for a minute. Jesse, good afternoon. Rant or rave for you?
I've got two raves for you, Mike, from the city of Cambridge, which is unusual.
All right.
So first off, I want to rave about the food bank initiative that has connected with farms and community gardens to get fresh vegetables to everyone. It's open to anyone, and for a minimum contribution of $10 or more if you want to, you get a good amount of veggies every week. And I think that more people should be accessing it, know about it, that it's available for everyone, not just those in need.
They set up, like, they take a mobile van or something out and set these vegetable sales up, right? Is that how it goes? Yeah.
I got the biggest sweet potato I've ever seen, about the size of a squash, the other week. I couldn't believe it, and it was amazing.
Love it. Love it.
My other one is I just want to rave about the group of people who every November 1st put on the pumpkin walk. allowing people to take their pumpkins there, and the city then takes the pumpkins and composts it for them. I just think, I went to the one in Preston. They put it on in Galt too, I know, and possibly Hessler. But the one in Preston, they had like a whole area for the kids to watch a video, have some popcorn, just the community getting out and enjoying the pumpkins one last time. And I just think it's a great thing that they put on for everybody, just free at the Cenotaph. And I just wanted to rave out for them.
Well done, Jesse. Thanks for those raves today. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Great to hear from you. So we're raving about the pumpkin walk. We are raving about the Cambridge Food Bank and its offerings of fresh vegetables by donation. So you go, see, this is what makes it so beautiful, right? The food bank makes it available to people who need it. Those of us who may have more means can go make a nice donation, get the fresh vegetables, and support the program so that it continues supporting those in need. It's a beautiful way of supporting our neighbors in our community. And while we are giving raves to Cambridge, allow me to add one of my own from the Cambridge Council meeting last week when they were talking about intensifying neighborhoods, allowing for different kinds of housing in traditional, if you will, established neighborhoods where, you know, you could have duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, whatnot have you. And I give Mayor Jen Liggett credit for saying what she said about these new kinds of housing, because Cambridge Council was talking about zoning rules and the kinds of housing that was going to be allowed in various neighborhoods. And there were some delegates at the meeting, as you would expect, kind of pushing back, not liking the ideas that were being brought forward. And Mayor Liggett said, listen, this housing is coming, whether you like it or not. And I know that comes across as heavy-handed and almost like a parent trying to tell their kid to swallow the bitter pill, but that is the reality today. I took a little trip out Fairway Road past Lackner, Chicopee Hills Public School area in Kitchener last week. I was taking my motorcycle back in for winter storage, and I took the long way, as I always do, just to get one last ride in, and it took me out that way so I could go out Kossuth and whatnot have you. But going out Fairway Road there towards Kossuth and seeing all of the housing, I haven't been out that way in a while, and man, oh man, it's like stacked towns, right? Crammed close together, multi-unit dwellings, and I thought, wow, like that's, I haven't been out that way in a while. That's the look of a new neighborhood in our community, in a place where there never were homes before. And it just struck me. I mean, I'm not seeing that happen in my neighborhood yet, because obviously that land was available for development in Kitchener at the time. So that's what they started building. But those sorts of housing developments are going to be coming to neighborhoods that we have long grown accustomed to in this community, because we need the ding-dang housing. So I give Cambridge Council credit for making it plain. We understand that you are not thrilled with the intensification that's coming to your neighborhood. We're listening to your concerns, but you got to understand, we have been designated by the province as a place to grow. Hundreds of thousands of more people are coming here in the decades ahead. They got to live somewhere, and housing like that is what we're going to be building. So we best get used to it. I've been saying for years on this show, our neighborhood's going to look a whole lot different, and we better get our heads around that idea. Back to the phones for George on Rant or Rave this afternoon. Hello, George.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mike. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. And you?
Good, I'm doing well. Over the last 72 hours, Mike, I've been really giving a lot of thought on that court decision for child porn, what should you do in a situation like that. And I came up with a plan where it should be a balanced plan. Here's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Double from 1 year to 2 years for child porn, but you put a clause in, an exception in, for that kid who's 18 and the girl's 17 and something like that happens. You put a clause in to protect them, because they're not the evil people we're looking for.
George, I hear where you're coming from, and I think you're on the right track with that, which is why I disagree with the Supreme Court's ruling on this, right? Because while the scenario that they've described absolutely exists, you can bet it exists right now, today, but certainly that is not a person who, the teenager who may have intimate images of their under 18-year-old intimate partner, right? they're not distributing and, using child pornography for their own perverted purposes, right? It's complete innocence. And that's why I don't think it would even end up in court, much less before a judge who's going to issue the 1-year minimum mandatory sentence. So George might be on something. Put the exception in the clause there as part of the ruling. And he wants it to be 2 years minimum, which, again, I won't even go too far down the road because it turns my stomach, quite frankly. So I'll just leave it right there. Supreme Court got it wrong, but maybe not for the reasons everybody thinks on the surface, in my opinion. This is Rant or Rave on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is your weekly opportunity to rant and or rave. Make the call and rant because you need to get something off your chest and onto the air, or rave because you want to sing someone's or something's praises. Back to the phones for Gary. Good afternoon, Gary.
Good afternoon, Mike.
Long time no talk, my friend. How are you?
I'm in good shape for the shape I'm in.
Good man.
The reason I'm calling in is it's a rave. I just want to remind the listeners that the KW Poppy Fund is in full swing. Please come out and support the Legions. And if you see someone tagging poppies, please make a donation.
Gary, appreciate that. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
You as well. Bye-bye. That reminds me, because I mentioned this on Friday, last Friday, the 31st of October, when the Poppy campaign launched. It launches on the last Friday of October every year. And so it just happened to be last Friday, the 31st. And I mentioned buy a poppy. And my buddy Ernie sent me an email and said, I gotta call you on this. It's not buying a poppy. It's making a donation. So when you see those poppies, those poppy boxes, etc., you're not buying a poppy. You are making a donation to our Legion, our local Legions, to support local veterans. So keep that in mind. I appreciate Ernie calling me out on the language on that, because it is important to realize that what we're doing here is making a donation. We're not buying something that's got a cost associated with it. We are making our donation to our local Legions to support our local veterans by picking up one of those poppies and leaving our donation behind. So if you get the opportunity to do so, please do. Canada Post didn't let us down this year. My Poppy Fund envelope came in the mail, thank goodness, because it's always something that I look forward to making a contribution to. So just remember, not buying a poppy, making a donation to our local Legions. Dallas is next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon, Dallas.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to weigh in on the Supreme Court thing.
Sure.
I think that there's one thing that I haven't heard. I listened to Rob Snow's show yesterday morning, the replay of it.
Yep.
Don't ask me why I'm up at 5 o'clock on Sunday, but I am. The one point that I have not heard anybody talk about is the deplorable sentences that particular judge ended up handing down. Law or none. Those two individuals should have been locked up for a whole lot more than 30 days and 9 months. That's what is boiling my blood, that nobody's talking about where this judge came up with these ridiculous sentences for such heinous bull crap, if you will.
Yeah, no, listen, I don't think you are far off the thoughts of many Canadians in that, Dallas, at all.
And I'm going to call Rob Snow's show today and convey the very same message, because I think that's where we got to really take a hard look. I mean, what's that saying to our police forces that'll spend months and months trying to track these guys down, and they basically get a slap on the wrist and off they go? That's ridiculous to me.
I hear you, Dallas, and I appreciate the call. We've talked about it a lot, and there are some, if not many, that will argue that stiffer sentences are not an effective deterrent. I would tell you that I have reached a point in my life or in my following of these cases that I'm ready to try it again, because it doesn't seem to me as though the punishment fits the crime. In this high-profile child pornography case that led to the ruling from the Supreme Court that a mandatory minimum sentence of 1 year is unconstitutional. In drunk driving cases, you name it. There are so many, or impaired driving because drugs are included. So many instances, it does not feel as though the punishment fits the crime. Don't even get me started on offenses that are carried out with the use of a firearm. I think penalties need to be far stiffer in that regard. But that's just me. I feel like we've done it one way for long enough to go back and say, well, let's just see if these stiffer sentences do actually act as an effective deterrent. It's funny, Dallas mentions what was he doing up at 5 o'clock on a Sunday morning. I won't ask, but I'll tell you what I was doing up at just after 7. I'm blaming the time change, but as soon as it started getting light out, I guess my circadian rhythm decided it wanted to wake up. It was tough yesterday. The older I get, the tougher that time change is. I'm looking forward to one of these years, one of the people that gets their name in the news saying, we got to stop with this time change. It's one MP every year does it. Maybe we'll actually stop with the time change, because I think it's a pretty goofy thing that we do to ourselves and our bodies. And oh boy, the next 6 weeks or so until December the 21st, when we start getting just a little bit lighter every day, it's going to be tough. Those mornings or those evenings now, when it starts getting dark around 5 o'clock, eesh, that's not my favorite time of the year, but we're going to soldier through this together like we always do. Really appreciate all the calls today on Rant or Rave and all of the calls on the topics we discussed. It is the most interactive radio program in the region, and you make it that way. So let's keep it up. We got another day coming our way tomorrow. I will return tomorrow morning at 9. We're going to talk about Light Rail Phase 2. We're going to talk about the federal budget. Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell is here for Ask the Chief, and lots more on your Tuesday show. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 9. You can join me then. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.